Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. How's everybody on this Thursday? You can jump in if you want to. Phone lines are open, 615-737-1045. We're going to do things differently today, and I'm excited about it. Not that I'm not excited to walk in here every day. Good morning, bud. By the way, Lucas Panzica.
Good morning.
Just a fountain of enthusiasm back there. How are you?
Fantastic.
Glad to hear it. So, when I called you this morning and told you how I wanted to do the radio show today, what was your initial thought?
Good idea.
Okay. That's rare, though. That's a rare enough thing.
Said it makes sense.
Because I was thinking about this, and, in typical us fashion, this did not occur to me until, an hour and a half before we went to air today, to do a show around Derrick Henry, who on his 30th birthday, by the way, a very happy 30th birthday to Derrick Henry, Titans running back, Titans legend.
You're not a little kid. You're 21.
He's not 21, Stephen A. He's 30, but even still, happy birthday to Derrick Henry. And on the day after he gets his 4th Pro Bowl nomination, Derrick Henry's going to the Pro Bowl. Jeff Simmons and Danico Autry are alternates officially. And in what stands to be possibly Derrick Henry's last game in a Titans uniform, and possibly Derrick Henry's last game in a Titans uniform at Nissan Stadium. Those things might happen on Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I wanted to take a look at Derrick Henry's career here and do a little bit of reflection. The guy's not dead. Nothing's happened. He just turned 30, although for some people, they may consider 30 death for a running back. Derrick Henry has beaten the odds. But I thought it'd be a cool thing to invite some of our friends on to talk about Derrick Henry. Mike Keith's going to be on the radio show today. Former Titans center Ben Jones going to be on the radio show today. We'll do a little college football playoff talk with David Ubben of The Athletic as well. But David, also having covered the college football world for a long period of time, is probably familiar with Derrick Henry going back to the recruiting days. Is he not?
Yes, familiar with Derrick Henry going back to the days of being heavily pursued by Tennessee as a 5-star prospect in choosing Alabama.
So with that, we've got Mike Keith radio calls. We're going to go through. We've asked the guests who are going to be on today for their favorite Derrick Henry runs. So we're going to play those today. And I think it's going to be a cool way to kind of relive that dude's career here, because you don't know. I mean, we thought that the Seahawks game might be Tannehill and Henry's last start together. Turns out not, or likely not. We don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be just yet. It does feel like it's probably going to be Tannehill. We'll see what Levis's practice designation is today, whether he's limited, whether he's available at all, whether he's full participant.
The difference, there's a difference in he actually was at the podium speaking, the presser streamed and everything yesterday as opposed to 2 weeks ago where he wasn't.
Getting treatment at that time. He did speak to media later, but it wasn't in the normal setting.
And he clearly wants to play, and he's pushing to play.
He wants to play. So, we don't know whether it's going to be Tannehill's last start, but there's a high percentage chance that it's Derrick Henry's last game at Nissan Stadium in a Titans uniform. And I think that, you guys having lived through so many of these great moments, whether you're around the TV with family during a noon kick or the holidays when he's doing these kind of things on New Year's Eve against the Jags, whether you're in person at Nissan Stadium and you see him rattle off a 99-yarder and stiff-arm Josh Norman into the sun, whether you traveled to road games the way that I see so many of you guys when I'm on my flights going to Titans road games and you're excited. I met a couple of fans who went to the Houston game on my flight back from Houston, father and his son. Son's been trying to go to a Titans road game. He didn't look like more than 7 or 8, but it was their first road game. Now, unfortunately, it was, the way that Houston game played out. But still, a lot of you guys have so many memories, core memories with your friends and family centered around this one dude. And I thought today felt like a timely moment to kind of go through some of those. And for the opportunity to win some Titans tickets, not yet.
Not now.
Not yet. What are we going to have them do, Lucas?
So starting at 11 a.m., that's when we're going to start to take phone calls with Titans fans submitting their best Derrick Henry memories / stories. Because you're right. I bet a lot of these have a story behind them, whether it's in the stands or on the road or watching at home, who you were watching with. everybody's going to have a Derrick Henry story. The best, the most compelling one will get a pair of tickets to potentially Derrick Henry's final game as the Tennessee Titans on Sunday. And the thing that has struck me as Mike Keith and Ben Jones and all of our guests have told us what their favorite run is, and we're going to play all those highlights leading into those conversations, is there's so many.
There's so many.
There's so many. Like, there were no repeats. You gave yours. You told me Ben's. You told me Mike's. I have mine. No repeats. No crossover. Everybody's got their own, and there's going to be plenty left over. So it'll be fun.
So we'll do that throughout the course of the day. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. As I mentioned, Derrick's going back to the Pro Bowl. Now, listen, it's a bit more of a we can be fair here. It's a bit more of a legacy vote for Derrick this year than it is on, I don't want to say on merit. He still earned it. He's still one of the better running backs in football. He's just not the best anymore. And at this point, he's over 1,000 yards, 1,014. He's got 11 touchdowns, 261 attempts. Did reach the 1,000-yard rushing mark. He and DeAndre Hopkins both eclipsed the 1,000-yard mark in their respective categories on Sunday against the Texans.
Did Kyron Williams make the Pro Bowl?
I did not see anything around him. I know the Rams had several, but that dude has been like, he's the best running back that nobody's talking about, really, it feels like this year.
Yeah, Henry is the 5th lead rusher in the NFL this season with one game to play, 1,014 yards. He's behind McCaffrey, obviously, who is in the Pro Bowl and the MVP conversation. Kyron Williams, the 2nd lead rusher, James Cook, DeAndre Swift, and then Derrick Henry. Raheem Mostert only 2 yards back of Derrick Henry.
And missing games, by the way, is Raheem Mostert. That's a part of that, and that's made a difference for the Dolphins' offense. But for Derrick, he becomes the 10th player in NFL history to record at least 5 seasons with 1,000 rushing yards and 10 rushing touchdowns. This is courtesy of Jim Wyatt. He also became the 2nd player in Titans-Oiler history, Eddie George, and the 42nd player in NFL history to reach 2,000 career rushing attempts. He has reached the 1,000-yard rushing mark for the 5th time in his career, which puts him in the same category as Eddie, who's done it 7 times, CJ 2K, who's done it 6 times, and Earl Campbell 5 times as the only players in franchise history with 5 or more 1,000-yard rushing seasons.
So Kyron Williams was named to the NFC roster in the Pro Bowl, and 6 running backs in the NFL have rushed for over 1,000 yards this season with one game to go, and all 6 are the running backs named on the Pro Bowl list. So I don't think it's a legacy thing.
That's fair. It's such a quiet 1,000 yards for him, Lucas, because we don't really have. We have a couple of moments this year where it's been a Derrick Henry game, right? It looked like Seattle might be one.
Cincinnati was.
Cincinnati for sure was. He's had moments throughout the course of the year, but it just hasn't felt. I mean, we can be honest. Just because it hasn't felt the same just means it's slightly less than the unbelievable that we've been watching for the better part of. I mean, he's been in the league what now? 8 seasons?
Well, what comes to mind to you when you think Derrick Henry game? Oh, we had a Derrick Henry game on Sunday. What figure pops into your mind? What stat line?
What figure?
Because for me, it's like 220 yards and 3 touchdowns. Right? So, unfortunately.
The most ridiculous statistical production that you've seen from running backs,
this
right?
season, Derrick Henry game has been 120, right? 130. So, yeah, a quiet 1,000. Last season was a quiet 1,500.
That's true. It's true. So to his credit, so it's unfair of me to categorize this as a bit more of a legacy vote because, he's still out there earning it, and God knows he earned it this year. So we'll get to your phone calls on that in a little bit. David Ubben is going to join us coming up next. We'll talk about the college football playoff, David, obviously covering the world of college football as a whole for The Athletic, and has some really good insights about this upcoming national championship game, and also will be able to participate in our Derrick Henry conversation. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. Happy to have you guys here on this Thursday. David Ubben is going to join us here in just a moment. Former Titans center Ben Jones will do so at 10:30. We're doing a little bit of Derrick Henry Day on his 30th birthday with a lot of cool memories that the Titans radio memory bank just happens to have on tap. How many highlights did you go through today? Because I know when I walked into the production studio this morning, you were vigorously looking up Earl Thomas clips for those of you who want to do some foreshadowing for perhaps one of your favorite Derrick Henry runs.
So far, just the ones that have been submitted by you and Ben and Mike and myself.
It's going to be fun to go through those things with Ben. Ben sent me like 5. And, of course, he's been a part of every one of them, so he'd have a better recollection than most. But in the meantime, we will talk about the college football playoff with David Ubben. And I kind of got into this with Cosell a little bit yesterday because, to be honest, like Greg and I started the podcast, and he said, what do you want to talk about with the Titans today? I said, I might, maybe give me a little something on Harold Landry, but other than that, I really don't have that much to ask you because it's same old, and this one just happened to be a bit more disastrous. So I said, maybe we do some college football today. And in particular, Penix, who's the most talented passer in the quarterback class this year? Like, just based off the arm talent. Last year, my nomination would have been for C.J. Stroud. So if we're kind of, Bryce Young was viewed as possibly the best quarterback. That's looking like a shaky proposition, although Carolina seems an impossible situation for anybody to succeed in. Do you ever think about that, as we're probably going to talk a lot about the Titans and Ravens today, that we spent an entire summer talking about nobody wanting Lamar Jackson?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Carolina,
how we're going to look
Atlanta.
back. The way we're going to look back at Lamar's career as a whole when it's over. And the way we're just going to look back at it and say, man, we were idiots. So many people.
But are they?
But every step of the way. Every step of the way in high school, coming out of the draft, he's not a quarterback. Even the contract stuff. Even the Ravens kind of, that was testy for a little bit. They didn't exactly jump to give him all that money.
No.
It's just crazy.
Well, they were what the Ravens were fighting against was a different kind of thing. They were trying to stave off a fully guaranteed contract, which of course would be a mistake for any NFL organization. It's clearly a mistake for the one that gave the one out to Deshaun Watson as they get ready to go on a playoff run with Joe Flacco as their 4th starting quarterback of the season. And by the way, they're going to start a 5th on Sunday as they rest Joe Flacco because they've already secured the playoffs.
Has any player in NFL history benefited more from betting on themselves than Lamar Jackson at every step of the way?
There's not one that comes to mind, man. I mean, and just constantly. Like, that it's so loud. Teams were putting out statements.
Yeah. We don't
on
want
their
them.
own accounts. the Atlanta Falcons. Who the hell are the Atlanta Falcons? to look at Lamar Jackson and say, nah, we're good. Idiots. Anyway, so kind of going back to the most talented passer in the draft class, Caleb Williams is going to get a lot of love. Caleb Williams should get a lot of love. There's some stuff about Michael Penix that makes me want to make an argument for it, and I'd be curious as to how Ubben views this. J.J. McCarthy, I don't really know what he's going to be at the next level. He made a couple of plays in that Alabama-Michigan game, of course, and was asked to do more in the passing game than he has been out of necessity because they needed to find ways to keep pace in that game. And Alabama kind of made them play a different version of their game than they might otherwise. Now, they were able to run the ball with some success, obviously. But I'm so interested to see how this matchup plays out with Washington and with Michigan because of how different their styles are, right? If Michigan gets its way, then Washington is not equipped to play that style of game, are they? Where you're dragging it down, where you're limiting possessions. They've got the best offensive line in college football this year. What's the award? Is it Joe Mauer?
Joe Moore.
Joe Moore.
So you got a matchup of the last 2 Joe Moore award-winning offensive lines in college football with Michigan and Washington.
So I just think like it's a bad matchup if either offense gets to dictate with their style of play. Michigan is not equipped to play in a shootout, right? Like this game between Michigan and Alabama was not a shootout. It was closely contested. There were some errors. There were some gaffes. There were some missed opportunities with field goals and things like that. But it's not like they had to really push the pace at all. And is Washington built in a way that they can kind of run the ball at will, even though they have one of the better offensive lines in football? I think it's going to be crazy to see how it plays out. And I know that David Ubben is going to document the matchup very, very well. Kind of going back to that Lamar Jackson discussion, a couple of comments from the F&M Bank chat. The Ravens are resting Lamar. Emmett Jones says he deserves a rest. That's right. He's not going to play in Week 18 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But the last time that they rested Lamar, they lost the AFC Championship game. Well, they haven't been to an AFC Championship game with Lamar Jackson. The last time that they were the number 1 overall seed was the year that the Titans knocked them off in 19. Now, Lamar is a vastly different, but that's the thing. Like, I don't think he's that different of a player. I just think he's getting more opportunities in the passing game. It kind of speaks to how, we talk a lot about coaching and how much it can help and how much it can hurt. Greg Roman was able to accomplish a lot with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, but you see how much different it looks with Todd Monken, who came from college to go back to the pros and has really helped bring out the best version of Lamar Jackson just because he's getting opportunities to show what a talented passer he is. Anyway, we can talk about that later. David Ubben of The Athletic is here. He's covering college football for theathletic.com. Well worth your subscription for all of the great journalism there. David, how did you enjoy the semifinal weekend?
Unbelievable couple of games. Certainly the latter game was played a little bit cleaner, but anytime you get 2 semifinals, we've been beaten into submission over the last decade where, one or both of the games are just not compelling, and it's clear that one of the teams is in another league. We didn't get that. We got what we thought. We got a lot of fireworks in the late game, a lot of smashy in the early game, and 2 really compelling finishes that, a game that was both games were literally decided on the last play, and man, it felt like a good way for the 4-team playoff to go out.
Did you prefer one to the other, the smashy aesthetic that you mentioned, or the the fireworks of Texas Washington?
I mean, I like the later one a little bit more, just because offense is kind of my forte. I appreciated Alabama and Michigan. It was extremely compelling. I enjoyed both. But if I got to pick one, I'm going to pick the one with 2 little better quarterbacks, I would say.
So as somebody who's tasked with telling the stories of these teams across the world of college football, what is the more compelling storyline to you? Michigan and how they got here, or Washington and what they stand to prove to the rest of the college football world?
Well, Michigan's been the most interesting team all year long that we've done a lot of, talk about, because with the sign-stealing stuff, I think for me, the main thing that I wanted to suss out was, how much of an advantage was this? That's all I really cared about. Yes, you broke the rules. Yes, you cracked the code. But, how much of an advantage was it? And it was very unclear at first, and then it seemed like, well, maybe a pretty big advantage. But the way that they have performed since it's clear that they don't have that anymore, I think has sort of done away with that. I'm sure they gained some advantage from it. But I think that to say that this is why the program turned or why they've been so excellent is really not fair and not true. So that, I think, has helped their legacy as a program a little bit. So I think for me, maybe I'm a little tired of the sign-stealing conversation a little bit. Washington's definitely a more fun team, a more aesthetically pleasing team. But when you tie in all the Harbaugh legacy stuff, the uncertainty of the offseason with him, the looming suspensions, Michigan's pretty compelling. So I would probably say Michigan.
So, David, as we get ready for this classic Big Ten clash for the national championship game, we were just talking about the different ways that both offenses want to dictate the pace of the game and how polar opposite they are. Looking ahead at it on Monday, do you anticipate this game looking more like your prototypical Big Ten matchup or more like a Pac-12 matchup?
I mean, it depends on who has the ball. I think these teams are going to be who they are. And when Michigan's got the ball, they're going to run the ball. You know, we just finished our Coaching Confidential that just went up on The Athletic, like, literally 10 minutes ago. And, you know, one of the coaches saying, like, nobody in the Pac-12, except for maybe Oregon State, is as patient running the ball. Maybe it's not working. Maybe it's a little slow going. Michigan's going to commit to the run. And Washington, you know, we talk to coaches, like, you can drop 8, you can run 2 high safety, man, you know, put a bunch of bodies in the secondary, they're still going to throw the ball. They throw the ball when, as one coach said, maybe they shouldn't throw the ball. And so, you know, I think 5 teams have run the ball less often than Washington. So these 2 teams are going to be what they are, and they're going to dance with the girl that brung them to the national championship game. So I think you're going to see a Pac-12 high-flying game when Washington's got the ball, and you're going to see the old smashy when Michigan's got the ball.
I love that. I just want to call, because I cover a football team that tends to lend itself to that kind of style of play anyway, so I'm going to try and work smashy into more analysis on a regular basis. Yeah. David Ubben of The Athletic here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Your column coming out of the Sugar Bowl was about Michael Penix and the way that he has saved basically his best for the college football playoff as he's continued to, you know, overcome adversity, dealt with a lot of injuries early in his career. Obviously, going back to Indiana, his relationship with Caleb DeBoer and how much that has helped them kind of grow and develop together. What have you made of the journey that the two of them have made?
I mean, I think with Michael, it's fascinating because, like, you could see it early in his career. But it's always hard when you watch a special athlete and their body just betrays them, will not let them be the great player that they are. And so for him to come to Washington, reboot his career under a coordinator, you know, a former coordinator and new coach in Caleb DeBoer that he obviously had such a attraction to after 1 year at Indiana, man, it's been cool to watch. And watching him stay healthy, and watch him sort of just perfect his craft. I mean, we lost count of the amount of dimes that he dropped in that Sugar Bowl game. We were sort of counting in the press box, but that was one of the best single game quarterback performances I think we've maybe ever seen in this sport. You know, no turnovers, no sacks. Much of that was his doing, and the throws that he was dropping in there that were not easy, and receivers making plays on those balls. It was just unbelievable.
Derrick Henry, just to kind of pivot here, David, and theathletic.com is where you can read all the work that David and his colleagues are doing on the college football playoff and on the participants involved in it. Derrick Henry's 30th birthday today. It's potentially his last game at Nissan Stadium on Sunday. We'll see what the Titans end up doing with him. But you have unique perspective on what his impact to the world of college football was, especially during the Nick Saban era of Alabama football, given that we're doing another college football playoff this year, our championship game this year that does not feature Nick Saban.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting watching him come into, I think it was the Sugar Bowl in 2014, and just watching him run, and you're just like, I think it was Spencer Hall who coined him as the refrigerator filled with bricks covered in Vaseline. Like, you just can't. Like, he seemed impossible. How big and how fast he was, and man, it's been fun watching him play and thrive. And you know, I think he's been just like what I think a lot of people thought he would be in the NFL. But man, seeing him that first year in college, every time he took the field, it's just like, this guy, this cannot be a real guy. And watching him in college and thriving in the NFL has been awesome.
Just to remind people, his Heisman Trophy winning season at Alabama, 395 carries for 2,219 yards,
God.
28 touchdowns, 5.6 yards per carry.
It's disgusting. It's just like but David, the fact that he was able to do it in the pros too is just crazy. Even if it's, you know, it's not ending that way. There's still signs of life from him on a regular basis. Yeah. But damn, it's just been crazy to see. David Ubben of The Athletic, at David Ubben is where you can follow him on social media. Theathletic.com is where you can read all of the work that he's doing. David, I appreciate the time and enjoy the national title game.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
That's David Ubben with us on 104.5 The Zone. So from David, we'll go to Ben Jones, former Titan center, here in just a second, because as we talk about the impact that Derrick Henry has had on the world of college football, we would be remiss if we did not go to one of his former SEC colleagues and one of our friends around here, Ben Jones, on the line with us now. What's up, my guy?
How we doing, Buck?
We're swell, always made better by your presence. So we're like a jukebox today. We're playing the hits. We have pulled you sent me like 5 Derrick Henry runs that you've been a part of, but we have pulled one of your favorite Derrick Henry runs, and Lucas is going to play the Mike Keith call of that for you now. The one that put him over 2,000 yards in the season finale in Houston a couple of years ago.
Tannehill takes the snap, gives Henry. Henry charging forward for 5 yards and a first down at 2,000. History for the King.
Ben, what do you remember about that season, and how important was it for you guys collectively, not just for him individually, but as an offensive line group to break that record?
Yeah, you always set goals every off season, and we knew we had something special with Derrick. The year before that, we got the rushing title on the last game of the year versus Houston. Then being able to, and that's what you're sitting there and making goals, and we knew how many yards he needed per game rushing average. Like, hey, we're above the average, we're below the average. Hey, we got to pick it up this week. Like, we wanted to be a part of that record more than anything. We knew, like, we were getting close to. I think it was that year he missed the game the year before that he missed the game with a hamstring versus the Saints. And we're like, man, are we going to get it? Like, we got to get him 200 and something yards next week versus Houston. Like, we had it all, like, mapped out, how many rushing yards. I remember being in that game, like, hey, don't take him out. We're trying to break the all-time record. Like, but he's the guy. Like, he always had the gifts to motivate some guys, but for some guys like me and Taylor, the guys, we didn't care anything about the gift. We wanted to go down in history with him because don't get that opportunity on about 99% of the teams, be able to run the ball like that. And to do it with 2-2, it was something special.
Go ahead, Lucas. Lucas was just asking a question in my ear. Go ahead.
Yeah, Ben, what was the discussion before that play in the huddle, before that 5-yard gain to break 2K?
Yeah, we're like, hey, we knew certain looks and like, hey, this could be it. Like, you always want it to be a home run and everything, but we knew exactly how many yards he needed. And both of those last games versus Houston in 19 and 20, we were trying everything in our power to get those records for him. And those are special. So, because since we knew exactly what he needed, like, we're coming to the sideline and different guys on the sideline like, hey, he needs 38 more yards. Hey, he needs 12. Hey, we got it. Hey, we're running out of time. We got to get this. We're trying to win a game also because we're trying to solidify a playoff spot there too. So it had a lot going on the line, but that was one of our goals, was to win the game, but to get that rushing title also.
When he first got here, Ben, DeMarco Murray was still here, and obviously John had traded for DeMarco. It was one of the best personnel decisions that John made while he was here, to kind of jumpstart you guys the way that he did, as well as bringing you in and a couple of other free agents to kind of kickstart that timeline for the Tennessee Titans. How did he change from the time that he first got here as a rookie, second-round pick out of Alabama to the guy that he ultimately became? In it felt like in 19, and maybe you can provide better context for the audience. Like, for us in the press box, it felt like he wasn't the full-time starter until 2019, truly. Because even in 18, he was still working through some stuff and losing snaps to guys like Deion Lewis and Fluellen.
Yeah. So I remember in 16, like, I was one of the big reasons why I came here was when they traded for DeMarco Murray. I was like, yes, they were the worst team in the league and in the division, but I was like, hey, they're building something special. They wanted to change the culture, and I was going to be the oldest guy on the O-line. And having a guy like DeMarco, I knew him, so I was like, hey, let's do this together. Like, let's change this. So that was one of the selling points. Then once he got here, all my family, and I grew up 20 minutes outside of Tuscaloosa, so I knew all about Derrick. And just, I gravitated to him, like how hard he worked in the weight room, how hard he practiced. Like, I'm like, hey, man, I went through this same thing. My first year I rotated as a starter. The second year, I was literally playing a series or two a game, and then I didn't miss a snap for like 8 years after that. I'm like, your time's coming. This is only going to help you in the back end. So I was in his corner over there with him because it is frustrating from being a Heisman Trophy winner to not really getting the love and what he thought he should have got his first 2 years, but it only helped him in the back end.
Ben Jones, former Titans center, hanging out here with us on 104.5 The Zone. How delighted were you all when in the playoffs on the run to the AFC Championship game, after all the smack talk between the Titans and the Ravens, that Derrick ended up using Earl Thomas as one of his lead blockers en route to one of these runs and a win?
Oh, the amount of trash talk we were able to do because of him. Like, everybody knew the Patriots game, we were going to run it every single play. They were in goal line defense the whole game, and we still ran it right down their throat. Then all the Ravens talked all week, all they got is one guy. He's not that hard to tackle. Then we went out there and did it again, and he literally made him look like a little child. It was the best. Earl was trying to talk smack, then all of us are just chirping him. Of course, you got King Chirper over on the left, Taylor. You can't even understand him because his voice is so high. He's just the whole time. So we had a lot of fun with him, and Derrick says nothing in the game. So me and Taylor got to use a lot of adjectives and a lot of great sound bites. I'm glad I wasn't mic'd up for those games.
Well, Derrick got a little line in at the end of that game. Good bleep, Earl. But that's about all that he had to say after one of the best performances of his career. Ben, I appreciate you taking some time. It was cool to kind of relive some of that stuff with you, and I hope you'll join us again soon, bud.
Anytime, Buck.
That's the main man, Ben Jones, with us. We're going to do that with a couple of different people today. Mike Keith is going to be on with us in the noon hour. Mike Keith, of course, has been the soundtrack to every Derrick Henry NFL run. But, Ben's perspective, not just as a teammate, but as somebody who grew up 20 minutes outside of Tuscaloosa, and okay, you know who Derrick Henry is, even if you played at Georgia the way that Ben did. It's cool to kind of get that standpoint. So we're going to take calls on this throughout the course of the day. We've got all kinds of highlights of Derrick Henry plays to play for you. We're doing it because it's his 30th birthday. We don't know if it's his last game at Nissan Stadium, but we thought it'd be fun. Not that, I'm not doing an on-air obituary, but we're doing a little bit of reflection, and I think that's cool. And for the opportunity, not yet, to win some Titans tickets through some Derrick Henry memories. We'll give you some more information on that a little later on. Which one do you want me to take?
Let's get Bam in Nashville.
Okay, go ahead, Bam. All right, good talk, Bam.
Bam.
Wait, you gotta be quick on the trigger. We got to keep it moving. We're going to talk about Derrick Henry coming out of the draft, out of that Alabama season, out of that Heisman Trophy year, and how the hell somebody like that fell to the second round. Not even the second round, the third of the Tennessee Titans' 3 second-round picks that year. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. Got some phone lines open. We'll get to some calls here in a little bit. F&M Bank Chat, you can live stream the radio show if you so choose. Who knows? If Mike Vrabel says a cuss word, you can hear it on the stream, not on FM radio. How about that for a tease? Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. So it's Derrick's 30th birthday, and it is good to be king. This year, maybe it's felt a little less good to be King Henry, but good enough to be fifth in the league in rushing, good enough to make his fourth Pro Bowl of his career. And as he turns 30 today, we're going to hear from him at some point in the noon hour about, how he's viewing this last game. Now, in all likelihood, we don't expect him to be too reflective today, do we, Lucas? I don't know. Sometimes he surprises me. Sometimes he seems like he's in the mood for it. Other times he feels like this is the last thing that he wants to be bothered with.
I think he's going to be about Houston.
You mean Jacksonville?
Excuse me. Yes, Jacksonville.
Look at you.
Clearly, I am not focused.
Well, I'm not sympathetic to you, but we have asked you to do a lot of things that involve a lot of moving parts today. So on this of all days, I'm excusing you not paying attention or listening to what we're trying to get done.
What?
So Derrick Henry, where were you in 2016? Were you out of college yet?
I was in school. I graduated in 18. So the 2016 NFL draft would have been the spring semester of my junior year.
So that was my first...
No, sophomore year.
That was my first season starting to cover the Titans. I wasn't doing games full-time yet. I wasn't going on the road yet, but I'd started going to practice. And I'd been here working in sports, but not as a Titans reporter, quote-unquote, yet, for Marcus Mariota's rookie year, which was 2015, which saw Ken Whisenhunt fired a portion of the way through the season, which saw them have the worst record in football. They won 3 games that year, which saw them get the number 1 overall pick and trade it away, which ultimately became Jared Goff to the Los Angeles Rams, and for them to put together a package of picks that also got them to trade back up and take Jack Conklin, 8th overall, in that 2016 NFL draft. So that was my first draft that I covered. And of course, everybody in the world knew who Derrick Henry was. Alabama wins the title. They do it on the back of Derrick Henry, literally on the back of Derrick Henry, to the tune of 2,000 and what yards as a college running back? In his Heisman season, you just rattled off his Heisman Trophy season numbers, 28 touchdowns.
Yeah, 2,219 yards.
And so the discussion at the time was the usage, much like it is right now with running backs. How could somebody who has been utilized so much in the SEC possibly sustain that coming into the pros?
603 carries in his college career.
People were looking at that number as a red flag. A red flag. That's the primary reason, not because he's not a hard worker, because he's not genetically ungodly. Like there's never been a running back, save Brandon Jacobs, that has like the size that Derrick Henry does. And
that was the comparison, right?
Which was a wild comparison because Brandon Jacobs had a solid career with the New York Giants, but he's just kind of a lumbering oaf is not a fair term to a professional athlete, but he's just kind of lumbering around out there. He's just a giant battering ram. That wasn't Derrick. And so the size comparisons were apt, but it's almost like comparing Joe Milton to Anthony Richardson of the Indianapolis Colts. They just because they're physically built the same does not mean that they are the same and that how they play is the same. So it was always a wild draft comparison, and maybe we're just doing that with retrospect, but I never understood Brandon Jacobs for Derrick Henry. Even though he could do the battering ram thing that Brandon Jacobs was famous for with the Giants.
Well, that's all it was. It was a size thing.
That's what we were saying.
Right, because that's so unique. It was so unique.
For a running back, for sure. And, the whole backstory on Derrick was Nick Saban wanted him to play defensive line, wanted him to play edge, basically. Derrick preferred to be a running back. He'd been a running back throughout the course of his high school football career. He wanted to be making plays with the ball, and, turns out Derrick Henry, right in that moment, more right than anybody else. So he's in the draft, And it didn't seem like it felt like we knew going in to the 2016 draft that Derrick Henry wasn't going to be a first-round pick. The merits of picking running backs at any point in the first round have certainly been debated over the course of the last couple of years, but that was, that's still a time period. That's still within the same time range as Zeke Elliott and Saquon Barkley going in the top 4 between the two of them. Zeke was a 4th overall pick, and Saquon, if I remember correctly, was Saquon Barkley the 2nd overall pick?
Definitely a top 3 pick.
So it's not out of the realm of possibility that a running back would, of course, go in the first round at this time, the way that it's almost like blasphemous to say now, where the Lions are being dragged for taking Jahmyr Gibbs, even though he's one of the best playmakers on the roster. Dan Campbell, point. Anyway.
I mean, we had 2 running backs taken in the first round last season.
So with Derrick Henry coming out, they make the trade, and they needed offensive line help. Conklin ended up being a rookie all-pro that year, whether you want to discount it because they were helping him a bunch with tight ends in the blocking scheme or whatever. Like, Jack Conklin, good pick. They have 3 then second-round picks that they end up getting as a result of the Conklin trade or because of all the draft capital that John Robinson has accumulated, because you'll remember that's John Robinson's first draft. So the 2016 Titans draft is kind of interesting to go back and look at. And we've been through this before. Can you name, besides Jack Conklin and Derrick Henry, can you name the other players that were taken in the 2016 Titans draft class? Byard is in there. He is the 64th pick.
Dodd
is the 33rd pick.
That's 4?
That's 4.
Austin Johnson.
Austin Johnson was 43rd. Derrick Henry, remember, was 45th. So those all 3, Dodd, Johnson, and Henry, are second-round picks.
And then I'm going to struggle to remember the rest.
Yeah, well, there's some names that matter in here. There's some names that don't. Tajay Sharp, who played, substantial snaps for the Tennessee Titans, coming out of UMass. LaShawn Sims, who was a depth corner here for a couple of years. And Sebastian Tretola, who I don't believe even made it onto his rookie roster because he shot himself in the leg at a bar back in Arkansas after getting in a fight at Tin Roof.
Offensive lineman out of Arkansas?
Out of Arkansas. Yes, correct. Yeah, well, in fact, Tajay Sharp and Sebastian Tretola famously got into a fight, not with each other, but they were together at Tin Roof on the night of the draft when they drafted Corey Davis, and that was, no, Tretola was not there for that one. That was a different Tajay Sharp fight. Tough. Anyway, so that's what the Titans draft class looks like in 2016. And it's crazy to go back and look at that specifically because Dodd goes 33rd. That's basically a first-round pick. He's the first pick in the second round. He had a late run. It felt like with the Clemson Tigers that year. I don't remember anybody panning the pick at the time. But just to kind of go back and look at Derrick Henry. So you have Dane Brugler's draft right up in front of you.
No, I'm looking at Lance Zierlein.
Okay, Lance Zierlein's draft right up in front of you, and that's courtesy of NFL.com?
NFL.com. Lance Zierlein, ahead of the 2016 NFL draft, the overview of Derrick Henry was bell cow running back with an ability to strap on, feed bag, and eat for 4 quarters. Henry's long legs and angular running style is a much better fit for downhill running teams who value lead backs and physicality. Henry needs early running room as he's not a creator in the backfield, but once he gets up a full head of steam, he is a nightmare with his ability to punish on the second and third level or take it to the house. Henry should come in and provide immediate production as a starter, which honestly I feel like is more positive than most of the feedback coming out about Derrick
Henry. I don't remember it being nearly that glowing about Derrick.
And it's funny now looking at the strengths listed by Lance Zierlein. So it's bullet points. Strengths. One of the biggest running backs you will ever see. Can be a violent runner without even trying. Pummels tacklers with forward lean and dynamite behind his pads. I like that. Gives run support cornerbacks bad dreams.
Which I can testify to.
Rare top end speed for a runner his size. Long strides from second to third level cut into reaction time for safeties, often leaving them a step short and grasping for air. He's effective in zone gap and power schemes, rarely fatigues and wears down defenses as the game goes on. And, there's a few more. Used a subtle change of direction at the second level. Used as a possession bully in short yardage spots when Alabama wanted to impose their will. The list of strengths is far longer than the list of weaknesses from Lance Zierlein. The weaknesses were, obviously, the touches. Almost 400 touches this year. Scouts concerned about his workload. Averaged almost 32 carries against SEC competition, including 90 carries over his last 2 regular season games. Tall, long strider who takes time to build up speed.
I'm sorry, read that last one again. 90 carries
over the last 2 regular season games. And I remember that that performance against Auburn in the Iron Bowl when he had 45 carries.
It was kind of like, I don't want to say it was horrifying. I'm just like, oh my God, at some point, I know he's a freak, but like this dude is, nobody can sustain this. And of course he did.
He says average foot quickness can lead to tackles for losses if he gets too cute in the backfield. Needs to improve his second read as a zone runner. Ineffective in the passing game with below average hands. Narrow-based running style that allows defenders to trip him up, and a sluggish cutback ability once he's outside the tackle box. Says he's more of a run finisher than a tackle breaker with only 7 broken tackles compared to Leonard Fournette's 22.
AJ Parkinson in the FNM Bank chat says, it's amazing that he can still stand. He hasn't missed a moment this year other than when they've, made him come off the field. The guy is I hope it doesn't lend itself to problems down the road because, of course, that's the thing that you have, the fear that you have with any football player. And, we're not there yet, so I don't know. Maybe it's a bad thought for me to have in the back of my head. But, it is so hard to do that at every level of football. High school, college, pros. Nobody does it that way.
I'm surprised at how positive that was from Zierlein because driving into work this morning, I was thinking about what that looked like coming out with Henry going into the draft, and I remember it not being that positive. People thinking it just wasn't really going to translate.
And you've read one, right? Like there's a variety of different analysts that you can go back and look at, whether it was McShay or Kuiper, like the guys who have been doing the draft stuff for years, where it was not that glowing. But
okay, listen to this. PFF's round-by-round ranking of the 2016 NFL. This almost feels cruel to do in hindsight.
All right, do it.
This was March before the 2016 draft. So their number 1 running back, the only first-round grade they had was for Zeke, who was drafted, top 5 in 2016 by the Cowboys. The number 2 running back, Kenneth Dixon out of La Tech. Number 3, Paul Perkins out of UCLA. I can't tell you who these guys played for in the NFL. Number 4, Jordan Howard out of Indiana.
Legend.
Yep. Had a decent career. Number 5, Alex Collins out of Arkansas. Rest in peace. Number 6, the number 6 running back listed by PFF is Derrick Henry.
Do they have a blurb? Do they have a blurb why he's 6th? Do you have access to that?
It says the second highest rushing grade in the class, 76 missed tackles forced as a runner, almost 1,400 yards after contact. So why is the Heisman Trophy winner only the 7th best running back in this class, even though they listed him as 6? Consider his workload of 395 carries. So they talk about the workload. To put into context, he averaged a missed tackle forced once every 5.19 carries, while it was 1 every 3.2 for Perkins and 3.6 for Dixon. Getting into the nitty-gritty here with the advanced metrics as PFF. Shocking. What Henry does offer is the ability to be a power runner who could form a potent 1-2 punch with the right partner. He's tough to bring down, averaging 3.9 yards after contact per carry. And while he graded negatively as a receiver and in pass pro, he can still have an impact at the next level based purely on his ability as a runner. So they almost exclusively use that stat. He averaged a missed tackle forced only once every 5.19 carries as a reason why to put him behind the likes of Kenneth Dixon and Paul Perkins.
Where the hell did Kenneth Dixon end up going?
I couldn't tell you.
Those sound like 2 Madden creative players that you just lobbed in front of me to make a good point.
I don't think I'd heard those names.
And that's from a college football fan. Kenneth Dixon.
He ended up with the Ravens, was a 4th-round pick to the Ravens, and was out of the league by 2019, played for the Toronto Argonauts in 2021.
All I'm getting is some self-employed lawyer on LinkedIn. That's the first thing that comes up in Murrieta, California, Kenneth Dixon.
Paul Perkins, on the other hand, 29 years old. He has been out of the league since 21. He was a Colts practice squad player, but he was a fifth-round pick in 16 by the Giants, bounced around for a few years, about 5 seasons in the NFL after his UCLA career. To be fair, Henry ended up being the second running back taken in the draft. There was just a large gap between he and Zeke.
Zeke went 4th.
Yeah.
And Henry 45th. We are going to continue to do this throughout the course of the day. We're going to tell you how you can win some Titans tickets, as a matter of fact, and get involved with this particular day of nostalgia that we're doing on Derrick Henry's 30th birthday. The best memory that you can provide from your standpoint of a Derrick Henry moment. A lot of you guys have been in the stands in ways that Lucas and I have not been. You have different perspectives on the 99-yard run, the 2019 playoff run, 2017 in the final game against the Houston Texans. Like all these different moments where Derrick Henry has made a difference. So we thought it'd be cool if we could relive some of those moments with you for the opportunity to win some Titans tickets. 2 Titans tickets to the Titans and the Jags coming up on Sunday, as well as 2 tickets to the VIP tailgate that is all-inclusive food and beverage with Ron Slay at the Bridge Building. 615-737-1045 is how you join the conversation. Don't forget, Mike Keith is going to do the exact same thing with us in the noon hour. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone.
It is 11:02. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Tennessee Titans were back on the practice field yesterday ahead of the regular season finale against Jacksonville Sunday. Quarterback Will Levis did not practice with the foot injury, but the rookie says he wants to be out there to finish the season strong as he works towards a return.
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot. We want to win, and I want to win, and I want to have, good feelings going into next year. So it means a lot. We wanted to obviously get these last couple, but I mean, all we can do right now is focus on this one and playing spoil and feeling better about ourselves, gives us the motivation that we need to win this game.
Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence was limited on Wednesday with a shoulder injury. He did not play last Sunday in the Jags' win over Carolina. Rosters are out for the upcoming Pro Bowl in Orlando. Running back Derrick Henry, the only Titans player named. It'll be his fourth career Pro Bowl appearance, as today is his 30th birthday. Defensive lineman Jeffrey Simmons and Nico Autry were named as alternates. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
All right. Hour number 2 on this Thursday. Welcome in, welcome back. Thanks for kicking it with us. Luke is back there making it happen. We got a lot more fun stuff planned throughout the course of today's show. It's Derrick Henry Day on his 30th birthday, because there's been a lot of sad boy stuff around here. Don't worry. We'll have more time to talk about the sad boy football team tomorrow in greater depth. We'll get to the ugliness that Will Levis inadvertently sprouted up between Titans fans and Vols fans, because apparently the two football fan bases in this state can't do anything but take shots at one another. It seems so ugly, and I don't know why. So I figured instead of doing that show today, we do a little Derrick Henry reminiscing, because I don't know if I'm going to cover the last Derrick Henry Titans game at Nissan Stadium of his career on Sunday or not. But if that is indeed the case, I would hate to go through a week of radio and not talk about that, because it's a really, really cool thing. Not a lot of people, not a lot of fan bases get to witness something that they believe to be a surefire Hall of Famer, and have done it with a certain position group the way that Titans fans and running backs have. We've been through this. Earl Campbell, Eddie George, CJ, and Derrick. It's tough to find a lot of other franchises. There are a few, you can get into the Cowboys and things like that have a stable of running backs, career franchise history of running backs like the Titans Oilers do. But having done a lot of these games and seeing a lot of these Derrick Henry moments going around, there's an account on Twitter called No Context Titans. And they were taking like requests, which was honestly where I got the idea to do today's show that way. So I appreciate them for kind of spurring us along. But I was seeing people send them requests to pull these random Derrick Henry clips on his 30th birthday. I was like, damn, I've gotten to be there for every one of them. And they have been so many cool moments where he just does the unthinkable and does it, whether it's multiple times in a game, whether it's, back-to-back weeks, whether it's for an entire season, the way that he did in the 2,000-yard season, or leading the league in rushing the way that they did in 19 and route to the AFC Championship game. Like, that's been a phenomenal career to watch, to document, and to cover. So today we're giving away Titans tickets. If you guys can provide for us some of your favorite memories, the best one we're going to give a pair of Titans tickets to at the end of this hour. From your standpoint, having watched him in the stands, having witnessed a moment with your friends or family or stuff like that, something that a core Derrick Henry memory, or a core memory that Derrick Henry was a part of for you as a sports fan. My favorite is one that we're going to save because I want to make sure that we have the highlight for it. But, Lucas, I want you to tell the audience what yours is before. And Derrick Henry, by the way, going to speak to the media. We'll carry that press conference a little later on. What is your favorite Derrick Henry run of his career?
This one.
Give it to Henry. Looking for some room. Finds it. 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, end zone. Ladies and gentlemen, 94 yards. Touchdown, Titans. He is the baddest man in the NFL, and he just took her to the house.
94 yards against the Houston Texans at Nissan Stadium in 2020. A shootout win for the Titans in overtime. A thrilling game against Deshaun Watson and the Texans. And I picked that one because, you know, we had gotten somewhat used to at that point the Henry long runs, the stiff arms, the explosiveness. But I don't think we had seen yet until that point Derrick Henry purely outrun an entire defense. That's what happened on that run.
It's crazy.
He breaks out of the line of scrimmage and gives one stiff arm across the middle of the field, just sends a defensive back down onto the ground, and then just turns on the jets. And watching him pull away from the entire Texans secondary on that play, still, I have to play it back 3 or 4 times because it doesn't seem possible. And he's the type of runner that every time he picks up speed, it doesn't look like he's running that fast. It's so hard to fathom while you're watching as these NFL defensive backs who are smaller and leaner and you would think faster than the giant running back are just getting separated as Henry pulls away. It still is stunning to watch. It's like an optical illusion. So I always go back to that 94-yard run and the Mike Keith call of he is the baddest man in the NFL. Just legendary stuff.
It's a classic. Mike's going to join us at 12:30 today, and we'll ask Mike Keith his favorite Derrick Henry run. So I don't know how much you remember about that game, but again, just going back through it from my context, it was a total bleep show the entire time. And they felt like they were in control. Things kind of spiraled. Both teams, it got wonky for. Titans won in OT somehow. They had a 14-point lead going into halftime of that game before Deshaun Watson and the Texans came back on them in the second half. And if you remember, they did the overtime coin toss. Watson was the representative for the Texans. Byard was the representative for the Titans. Texans got the ball first in OT, and you see Byard's body language just sink when because this is the year, of course, of the terrible Titans defense, of the historically bad third down Titans defense. So everybody is just living and dying on every snap of Titans defense in that year. And Deshaun Watson thinks he's got it won. And statistically, they should have won it. The team that gets the ball in overtime has such a higher percentage chance to win the thing going away, as does the team that gets the ball if the team that wins the coin toss does not score first, does not score a touchdown first. Tannehill had a really nice late game drive to force the overtime. And then Derrick Henry obviously had the run. Was it out of the Wildcat? Is that what Mike said?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure that was a handoff. That was when the Titans were down 23-21 going into the fourth. And that was with 9:23 to play in the fourth quarter. A one-play 94-yard drive to take up 14 seconds off the clock for the Titans to take a 29-23 lead. I mean, Texans scored almost immediately. Will Fuller on a 53-yard touchdown from Watson. It's 30-29 Houston, and then Brandon Cook scores. It's 36-29 Houston, and then A.J. Brown scores, and it's 36-36. And oh, man, what an awesome game that was.
22 carries, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 catches for 52 yards in that Texans game. We'll get to my favorite one here in a little bit. Should we start taking some calls on this?
Let's do it.
Okay. 615-737-1045 for the opportunity to win a pair of Titans tickets and Titans VIP tailgate tickets for Sunday's game against the Jags. Stephen Franklin is first.
Guys, I'm going to go fast so don't get the music. I grew up in Texas. I was a Cowboys-Oilers fan. As a young man, Earl Campbell and Tony Dorsett were my heroes. As a young man, my mom agreed to let me stay up one night and watch Monday Night Football, and I got to see Tony Dorsett run 99 yards. Fast forward many years later, a gas station, no free ads, that was running a special on tickets. I had just started my own business. Times were tough. They were selling tickets for $25 a piece in the cheap seats. I took my very young son, who was the same age as I was when I saw Tony Dorsett run 99 yards, to the game. It was, of course, the game, the Thursday night game. We were all bundled up. We were freezing to death, and Derrick Henry delighted us with his 99-yard run. The stadium went crazy. It was amazing, and Derrick cemented himself in my memory and my son's memory and created an amazing bonding moment for the two of us. Thank you, Derrick, for that memory and so many great ones. Happy birthday. We love you.
Go ahead and play it for him, Lucas.
You're not a little kid. You're 21.
Not that.
That's what you meant, right?
Mariota gives it to Henry. Henry bounces it outside. 5, 10, 15, stiff arm, 20, 25, 30, 40, stiff arm, 50, 40, 30. He's on his feet. Big chase, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown! Titans, 99 yards! The longest run in franchise history. And the Titans are up by 11. What a run, Derrick Henry!
Now, that was back in December of last year, which is not something that a lot of you guys would associate with one of Derrick Henry's better runs. But if you'll recall,
October 30th
of last year, where Derrick Henry is out there getting the start, where Malik Willis is out there getting the start with Derrick Henry because Ryan Tannehill has sustained an injury in the week prior against the Indianapolis Colts. So the rookie third-round pick is going to get out there. We're going to see what it looks like. They're going to need a big effort from the running game. They get exactly that, a good day by the defense as well. And the Texans were not exactly this year's Houston Texans team. But still, Derrick Henry in support of Malik Willis, and really the truck to Malik Willis's trailer, to use a metaphor that I know Daniel Jeremiah, the NFL Network, likes to use from time to time, is really pulling things forward throughout the course of that game and helps the rookie quarterback get a win in his first start, where we're looking around and being like, all right, if they can play football like this, they can definitely find ways to win if Malik has to only attempt one forward pass in the second half of football. Sure, you can bleep around and win some football games if you're going to play that way. Now, it wasn't sustainable, but why is that one of your favorite runs?
It's the last 200-yard game from Derrick Henry. Obviously, if he doesn't go for 200 on Sunday, and that is indeed his final game for the Titans, that will be his last 200-yard game as a Tennessee Titan. And I feel like it is one that goes under the radar, 17-10 win against Houston. And it was one of those that 2 plays in, you thought, okay, it's going to be one of those. On the second play of the game, Henry up the middle, 41-yard gain, and you just thought it's going to be that kind of day. And he goes for 219, 2 touchdowns as the Titans improved to 5-2. This was obviously before the collapse last season with that 17-10 win for Malik, who didn't have to do much that day, going 6 of 10 for 55 yards and an interception in a winning effort on the road because your running back ran for 219 and you ran for 314 as a team. 314 rush yards.
That's ridiculous.
In the NFL, Dontrell Hilliard had 83 in that game. But I like it because it's up the middle. The move that Henry puts on in the middle of the field to shake a defensive back, and then the stiff arm to boot along the way as he gets into the left pylon. That's one that, to me, is a little underrated.
So we're taking your phone calls, your memories today. Steve in Franklin let us off with a good one, the 99-yard run, and I'm sure many of you are going to remember the 99-yard run as one of your core memories that Derrick Henry is involved around. Steve got there first, so it's not like you can't have a good memory that's associated with a 99-yard run for us to consider, but Steve did take that one off the board in his initial call. So for the opportunity to win some Titans tickets today, we're going to take the best one of those memories and give you a pair of Titans tickets for Sunday's game and 2 VIP tailgate tickets, 615-737-1045. I'm going to give you mine here in just a second.
And by the way, it doesn't mean that you can't use that play.
No, you for sure can.
It's about the story and the memory behind it.
Absolutely. Steve's was a good memory. It doesn't mean that you can't top it. Not that your memory is better than Steve's memory or Steve's memory is better than your memory. But, we were trying to find a fun way for Titans fans to participate today and, potentially see Derrick Henry's last game at Nissan Stadium. Now, full disclosure, there's nothing to indicate yet one way or the other that they're not bringing him back. But I honestly, Lucas, I would hate to not have the opportunity to do this show. Like, even if they end up re-signing him and it's like a training camp type of deal where it's 1 year, $3 million, they do it in August because he's made it through the initial waves of free agency, as I think most people expect him to. We can do this kind of stuff again, but I'd hate to miss the opportunity to do it once, which is why I'm glad we're doing it today. For those of you who are saying, well, there's nothing to guarantee that Derrick Henry isn't coming back. You're 100% right. But there's only so many chances that we would get to have a show like this. So I'm glad we're doing it. Let's go with Buffalo.
I'm going to take you back to 2020 today, January 4th, 2020. It was the day I became a Titans fan. I've been living in Tennessee since 1985. They were up against Tom Brady, who had just lost to Miami before and didn't get his prized position in the playoffs. And Tannehill had never won in Gillette Stadium in his life. Tom Brady hadn't lost in 17 games in the playoffs since 2001 in 17 games. So here comes Derrick Henry. All right, he's going to rack up 182 yards, a record. the defense kept Brady out of the end zone on the 2-yard line like 3 times in a row. Anthony Ferkser got a touchdown. They ended Tom Brady's career. I mean, that was the day I became a Tennessee Titans fan right there, buddy, and you can take that to the bank.
It's a great memory. Thank you, Buffalo. So I remember that game vividly. So that's the 2019. That's the start of the 2019 playoff run. There's all kinds of narratives about Tom Brady playing in the wild card round for the first time in quite some time, and they'd struggled. Right, it's the last year of Tom Brady's career as a Patriot, as Buffalo just pointed out. And I remember sitting in a hotel room in the business district of Boston, and I'm on social media, getting ready, getting dressed, getting ready to call my Uber to go to Foxborough and cover this game. And all of a sudden, the internet is just completely swept up. And I'm telling you, within 5 minutes of Tom Brady tweeting out this pregame hype video about his, people taking shots at the king and all these different things. And there's a video of a lion, a lion closer to the end than he is at the beginning. And he's got one last roar in him, and he's out there gashing everything, on the savannah and stuff like that. And Tom Brady puts out this hype video, and the whole world takes it and runs with it. And the Titans are coming to town. Oh, what do the Titans have? They've got Ryan Tannehill. He's not had any success against the Patriots. He's been doing it as a Dolphin his entire career. He's struggled. Derrick Henry, yeah, okay, but what? What are the Titans going to do in Foxborough? And so this video comes out, and it's all over SportsCenter. It's all over the internet. And then we go cover the game. And like Buffalo says, it's a tremendously tight game the entire way through. It's very, very defensive skewed. This was a time when the Patriots roster was, pretty depleted from a skill position standpoint. Ben Watson, I think, was their Ben Watson at like 85 years old is their leading receiver in that game for periods of time. And Derrick ends up running the ball. Ben Jones just documented it, right, when he came on with us earlier. They were going to run it every single play, basically. Patriots were in goal line defense the entire game, couldn't stop the Titans. 182 yards and a touchdown for Derrick Henry. And one of the better performances that Titans defense had all year long to hold Tom Brady down, who at 42 years old was unhappy with his situation, was getting ready to bolt the next year for Tampa Bay. And Logan Ryan was kind to send him on the way out the door in Foxborough with a pick six to end it after it had been very, very tight the entire way through. It started a run that was as crazy as any. I mean, going to the Super Bowl is the best run that the Tennessee Titans have had, obviously. But the 2019 run is as good a run as any since then. And that Derrick Henry was as big a part of it as it was, and the teams that they beat en route to that with New England and then Baltimore as the number 1 overall seed before losing to Kansas City. So many memories from that specific game. It was a weird, foggy night in Foxborough. The vibe was kind of off in Gillette Stadium because the Patriots fans knew that, this may be the last Tom Brady that they see, and this team was particularly vulnerable. It was wild. I was sitting. You want to find me for this? I'm getting ready to drop one. Sitting in the press box behind Peter King.
Why would I find you for that?
Because it's a name.
Sure. But that's not like you seeking for clout. You just so happen to be sitting near Peter King, who's based, isn't he based out of there?
Your rules for this are ridiculous. I don't know how to play this game. It drives me crazy.
You get fined when you say things unnecessarily seeking clout. So Mina Kimes was texting me the other day when it provides no context.
Relevant to the conversation.
No, it wasn't. You can accomplish what you're trying to say, but you're telling a story here. Continue.
Okay. So I'm sitting behind Peter King in the press box. Now, I don't know Peter King, but Peter King is having a discussion with one of the New England Patriots beat writers that I can hear from my seat in the press box. And he's talking about, he's just kind of in awe, as most people are sitting around in that press box, talking about the Tennessee Titans. What do you mean? This is a lot of people are there, a lot of big-name journalists that you only really hear about until you actually see them in person to discover that they're real people. Peter King is one of them that's in that press box covering that game because everybody's there to cover Brady. It's all about Brady. The story is supposed to be about Brady. And looking around for all the people that traveled from the Washington Post and the New York Times and Peter King at Sports Illustrated when it was still Sports Illustrated and all these different kind of things, it's looking around and be like, the hell are the Titans doing here? And just winning the game. That's all.
What's yours?
Mine is from the following game. Mine is a run that will forever be remembered as the run that ended Earl Thomas's career. You can play it?
Well, what do you want to do? The highlight first or Earl Thomas talking first?
Well, since you want me to do Earl Thomas talking first,
yeah, that's what I have teed up, so that's what we're doing.
Yeah, so I think Tannehill probably threw it like 17 times last game for like 75 yards in the playoff game, and they still won. You know, that's a credit to how hard he's running and their O-line. He's a cutback runner. He's very patient. He'll find creases. And guys didn't seem like they was too interested in tackling him. So I think our mindset is a little different. I think we're going to try to tackle him. We're going to try to swarm, and we're going to see how it plays out.
Now, it's not as strong as I think a lot of us remember the quote-unquote trash talk from Earl Thomas being. Because famously, Derrick took something personally in that game, and whether he needed to take it personally or not to spin Earl Thomas around en route to Earl Thomas being a lead blocker. And what was one of the best Titans offensive performances that I've ever seen, even though it wasn't statistically gaudy, right? It's 28 points. And the defense does well in that game because they're stopping Lamar on 4th and 1. Kevin Byard got an interception early on. I think it was a 31-yard interception by number 31 early in that game after the Titans do well to kind of catch them off guard with that Khalif Raymond touchdown that opened the scoring. But Derrick in that game has a 66-yard run on 3rd and 1 that led to a passing touchdown to Corey Davis. And it was all a part of the game that propelled them to the AFC Championship game, and also one of those runs where he's stiff-arming Earl Thomas so much so that he turns Earl around and turns a safety into a starting fullback for the Tennessee Titans offense.
Tannehill going to give it to Henry. Running to the left. Henry finds room, steps out of a tackle, 25, 30, stiff arm, 40, stiff arm, 45, and he's run out of bounds. Thomas caught both of those stiff arms. Did get him out of bounds at the 46, but it's a gain of 28 and a first down for the Titans.
Well, that's exactly what we needed right there. That was an outside zone cutback. All of that run was on Henry, and also across the line of scrimmage, Mike, they did a nice job of blocking on the backside and not giving up on those backside.
Kind of abrupt there by Coach Mack.
It does cut off. I don't know who cut that clip.
So it was. It's one of my favorites because that's how many games have you been just dumbfounded by? Truly like stop in your tracks, dumbfounded by. Because that was one for me. I thought they were dead going in there because they'd already done the unthinkable. They'd already beaten Brady the week before. And I'm sitting in the Baltimore press box, and this is the number one Ravens, the number one overall seed in the AFC. This is Lamar's year, Lamar's MVP year. They're playing. Did you go to M&T at any point when you were traveling with Titans Radio?
No, I've never been to M&T Bank Stadium.
It's a great atmosphere. That's what I think would live up to the hype for you.
I was working in promotions for this game, and the official Titans watch party was at George Jones Bar, and it was electric.
Yes.
It was so packed.
So it's one of the first, I think that might have been the first game that I'd done at M&T Bank Stadium. And it's an older stadium, but the atmosphere is phenomenal. Baltimore at night, they're just, especially the Titans, the history of the rivalry. It's all anybody can talk about all that week leading up. They have the Enter Sandman intro that they have, and that was the first year that I think a lot of these NFL franchises started installing the light shows as a part of their, Alabama had it first, it felt like, in college football. I don't know what the technical term is. Nissan Stadium technically has one too. They don't ever play night games, so they don't get to use it. But they have the whole light show going. They have Lamar's entrance. It's Enter Sandman. It's wild. And the Ravens fans are foaming at the mouth. They're fighting each other. They're so excited because they're insane. And of course, this is their year. And all of a sudden, with throughout the course of that game, starting with that first bomb from Tannehill to Khalif Raymond, who gave Tennessee a 14-point edge in that game. It was one of the most ridiculous things that I've ever seen, and Derrick Henry being the primary engine of it. and that play. It's between that and one I know that we're going to play for Mike Keith later, which is interesting that it's Mike's favorite call, or Mike's favorite run, not his favorite call, but his favorite run. It's another game at Baltimore against the Ravens, but that one in the COVID year, which was arguably the better run.
And Earl Thomas never played another NFL snap.
Well, he got cut. His contract got terminated the next year because he got into a fight with Chuck Clark, I think was the safety's name. Got into a fight with his teammate Chuck Clark in training camp. And then, of course, there was a bit of scandal around Earl Thomas because, and I don't know if this ever made it past allegedly, but there was some alleged behavior between him and his brother and another woman who wasn't his wife, and his wife pulling a firearm on the two of them while they're in the bedroom and things like that. Like, it got very, very complicated.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, all of it, allegedly.
She was later granted a restraining order against him. That is not alleged.
Ah, good. So, yeah, Derrick Henry kind of ostensibly ended Earl Thomas, at least as a Baltimore Raven. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to join in. How about, let's see, Jared in Mount Juliet.
How's it going, guys?
Great.
Hey, yeah. So I know a lot of the memories will be the same one, but mine is also January 11th, 2020, Baltimore Ravens. That was the take everything playoff slogan. A close friend of mine played minor league baseball with Hayden Hurst. I don't know if you remember him or not, the red-haired tight end. A lot of people called him Thor. But he got us tickets for that game. And I don't know what section we were in, but we had great seats. And I just remember there wasn't a Titans fan anywhere to be found close by us. But I agree with you. It's probably the most intimidating electric atmosphere that I'd ever been in, especially pregame with all their intro and the whole Ravens mystique and everything lasted for about 10 minutes, and then 30 carries and 195 yards later, no one was left in that stadium except people that were wearing blue. And I correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that was Henry's first touchdown pass out of the Wildcat. It went to Corey Davis, but I got a high five. I remember that night I got a high five from Adoree Jackson. I just missed Henry, and then saw Justin Tucker at a pizza restaurant later that night. But just an incredible night and one that I'll always remember. And then I got to be there for the 99-yard run too. So happy birthday to the King.
Appreciate the call, Jared. It's just, straight up jaw on the floor watching that game in the press box. It's like, oh my God, they're going to do this.
I guess that was his first career touchdown pass.
I don't remember one before it, but I'd have to go back and look through. And it was funny because it was Corey Davis's birthday. His birthday is the Patriots game. The next week is Corey Davis's birthday, and we're talking about, what are they going to do on Corey Davis's birthday? Of course, Derrick throws him a touchdown pass against the Baltimore Ravens. It was just a wild game.
Jonathan on the F&M Bank chat asks, has Derrick ever answered what his own favorite run is?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure he'd smirk and be like, well, the 99-yard was pretty fun. I think he's made comments like that to us before, but I don't think we've ever pinned him down and be like, no, what's your actual favorite, Derrick? Tell us now. I'm sure he'll be asked he's going to be tired of this by the time he gets to the podium today. We're doing 3 hours of radio on it, but I think it's fun. I think it's fun for people it's fun for me to remember. It's been a while, and I know so much of this football season has felt so awful for you guys. So I think to be able to relive some of that stuff is pretty cool. One more. Philip in Portland. Hey, Philip.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good.
I'm in Franklin, actually.
Okay.
Happy New Year's and happy birthday to King. My favorite is October of 21 against Buffalo here at Nissan on the 76-yard run when we won 34-31. We almost didn't make the game because of work, and we got there right at the beginning of the game. I was frustrated. I was all upset, and I sat down and watched him get 3 touchdowns and average, I think, about 7 yards a carry that night. But they said the next day, we heard that they said the 76-yard run against Buffalo was the fastest run in NFL that year. And, man, we just loved it. He had 3 touchdowns that night. It was all – I'm sure you remember it.
Absolutely I do. Let me hear it.
Tannehill gives Henry on the right side. There he goes. 25-30, 35-40,
That's
50,
it.
40,
That's
30,
it.
20, 10, 5, end zone. Ladies and gentlemen, 76 yards. Derrick Henry, touchdown, Titans.
That's getting something going.
So that's the third touchdown with 3:05 left. And that's the game that, Bills fans still debate this, right? Because Bills and Titans fans always have something to debate, whether it's a forward pass or a backward lateral or a goal line stop. Did Josh Allen slip or did Jeffrey Simmons stop him?
We should have called that Slipgate.
That's one of the dumbest things. You remember going to Buffalo the next year? I still had people. My Uber driver was arguing with me about whether Josh Allen fell. And, the Titans got their asses kicked 41-7 in that game the last time we were in Buffalo. But
that's one of the best environments at Nissan Stadium in recent memory.
Was so fun.
Of the Derrick Henry era, I'd argue that's the best environment at Nissan Stadium. I mean, you're the one that's been to all those games. Like, can you name a better, and it's rare, the Titans, obviously, that they get to play under the lights on a Monday Night Football, so that obviously added to it.
Yeah, there's only so many.
But is there a better, more electric environment at Nissan Stadium in a Derrick Henry game than that night when they beat the Bills?
No, because the only one that had the potential to be close was the one that completely got neutered because Marcus was not a healthy scratch, but he got scratched the morning of the winning in. Like at 6 a.m., Chris Mortensen reported that they weren't going to play Mariota.
2018.
And that leading in had been one of the biggest games that the Titans had in, 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Obviously, winning in against Luck, against the Colts, at Nissan Stadium. The city was buzzing about it, and then all of a sudden at 6 a.m. on that Saturday or Sunday morning, Chris Mortensen put that out there, and the environment became very, very odd because it's all of a sudden Blaine Gabbert and watch Daddy sling it into the linebacker's chest.
But the pop at Nissan Stadium when Henry broke through the line of scrimmage on that run, and there he goes. I love that call, too, from Mike, the there he goes call with Henry. He also ran over Micah Hyde in that game in a violent way.
Who tried to stick it out. Like Micah Hyde, who did the thing that nobody else does, which is just try and eat the hit. It did not go well. Allen had like 350 yards in that game. It was one of the better it made it so much more fun because it was a good Josh Allen game. He was just out there tearing them up. So that went back and forth like that, and it was kind of Allen versus Henry to an extent. It showcased why they were going to be competitive against those Chiefs and Bills and teams like that at the top of the AFC. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. We'll get to more of those coming up. Derrick Henry is going to speak. Mike Keith is going to join us. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone.
Mariota has 3 receivers to the right. Gives it up the middle. Henry, lot of room. 30, 20, 10, 5, end zone. Touchdown, Titans. Derrick Henry, over 100 to pay dirt. And oh my goodness, there is shock in KC.
That is Mike Keith on the call. The voice of the Titans is going to join us a little later on. We'll get to his favorite Derrick Henry run of Derrick's career here. Like I said, I don't know if he's going to be back or not. We're gonna have a lot of time to talk about his future here, and elsewhere in like the Titans news world, like a lot of people, we reacted to the Mike Vrabel response about his job stuff yesterday. Okay, don't really, there's nothing changing about that for the foreseeable future. Will Levis and his comments about Vols fans that got taken out of context that were ridiculous and, just showed off some of the ugliest parts of the two fan bases that I still can't wrap my head around about why it's so toxic between Vols fans and Titans fans, but okay, that's fine too. The absence of that, I think that looking at a couple of these performances and the viability of bringing him back, right? It should not be an emotional decision, because the emotional decision would be to immediately say, all right, bring him back. Like, bring him back for what? A figure under, I think the most irrational Titans fan would probably want to pay Derrick Henry something like $6 or $7 million next year. I don't know if they would give him a multi-year deal or something like that. I think the most likely scenario is a 1-year deal signed around training camp in August by this team or another team, where Derrick is still kind of out there in a saturated free agent running back market where there's going to be more running backs in the draft and all this kind of stuff. But he's still making a case for it in real time. So it's not like you can outright deny the viability of Derrick Henry. The question is he at a point in his career where he's helping them or he's hindering them? Because it's tough for you to argue that he's outright helping them when everything around him is so poor that he simply can't.
Well, how much is his presence impacting their philosophy right now in offense?
Very much so. When you have Derrick Henry on the roster, you play a certain style and you play a certain way. Now, the argument, of course, is, well, that's not the most modern version of football, which kind of ignores that the best passing offenses in football also have some of the best and most efficient rushing attacks. And that's because they're spreading things out. They're making things easier to run. The boxes aren't as loaded as what the Titans are facing with Henry and all that stuff. But, I mean, is anybody going to make a compelling argument that Derrick Henry can truly help them right now as the roster is currently constructed? Of course not. I don't know how much better it's going to be this year. We're going into this offseason not expecting them to fix all of the problems in the offseason, right? Now, they have to do a better job than they did this year. The offensive line got worse. It needed to get better. It didn't. The cornerback situation, can we argue that it got worse in the secondary this year?
Cornerback?
Corner.
Worse from?
Just from 2022.
Right. I'm thinking back at 2020, who was even on the field at corner.
A lot of injuries, right? A lot of injuries all over the place in the secondary. Like, they're real banged up.
I mean, what was the biggest difference personnel-wise at corner from 22 to 23?
Murphy Bunting.
Sean Murphy Bunting.
Yeah, and he's been, up and down at best. So maybe you want to give that a push. I don't know. But there's a lot of things on the roster that you needed to get better this offseason that didn't outright get better. In fact, like I said, you could argue that the offense, it's not even arguable. The offensive line situation is worse than it was a year ago. So that they're going to feasibly fix all of these problems in the draft and in free agency, I don't think that's realistic. But how much can they fix, and how much work can they do specifically on the offensive line to where it's even a discussion about Derrick? Because right now you can't bring him back. I don't think. There's just so much more that needs to be done there and resources that you'd rather allocate. The emotional argument is for him to break Eddie's records and all these different things and, to retire as a Titan and all these fairy tale type of stuff that don't really happen that often, even with somebody like him. So just because it's not the end yet doesn't mean that that's not the most likely scenario. And I know that Vrabel has a degree of not a degree of loyalty. Mike Vrabel's very loyal to those players who helped him win a bunch of games. It's why Tannehill lasted as long as he did. It's why Derrick is still a focal point of the offense. And also because they can produce when called upon, or Derrick more so than Tannehill. I'm fascinated to see how they approach this because, for a lot of reasons, I think they need to change. I think they need to move away from this stuff. They're just no longer equipped to play that style of football. And, it's not like they're not cognizant of that. When the analysis of them from Greg Cosell is they just can't line up and play.
Right. What's more likely, though, that they do move to a totally different philosophy on offense, which we've seen signs of this year under Kelly, or they try to get back to actually being equipped to play that style of football?
Well, I just don't think they have to completely get away from it. Like, I do think that there can be an answer in between. I think that they can have a more modernized version of a passing offense in today's NFL and also still lean on the run. Like, you can't go away from running the football. The Chiefs and the Bengals, when they've been at their best, and maybe not this year, the Bills, when they've been at their best, they haven't been able to find a consistent running game around Josh Allen, but they still have to run the football. They just use Josh Allen to do it. So it's not like that's not ever going to be a part of the philosophical approach. There are times when you're going to have to close out games with your rushing attack. You have to be able to play that way. It's just been so, with Derrick, doesn't it feel like it's been a bit lopsided? That they can operate with their passing game when they've had AJ and Jonnu and Corey Davis and, Delaney Walker before that and all these different things. But that they were so much better at running the football that it just made sense to run the football more that way and to play that kind of defense and to grind teams down. I think they can still be equipped to play that way. It's just right now they can't play either way. And that he's still back there when they can't play either way in front of him makes it a limiting situation.
Steve on the F&M Bank chat says the league's perception of Henry now is low because of our awful O-line. We may be able to get him for a steal.
I think anybody's going to get him for a steal. Like, who's bidding for Derrick Henry? Not to kind of change the course of this discussion today, because I know this is one where we're talking about a lot of good memories of Derrick, but it's a discussion that's absolutely going to be had. Who's bidding on Derrick Henry services next year?
That's hard to sit here and predict across the league, but I think there are teams that could stand to bring in Derrick Henry next year.
Okay.
And to act like people wouldn't seriously look at it.
Those are two different conversations, Lucas. Who, in the first wave of free agency, when the long-term deals are being handed out, who's giving Derrick Henry a 3-year, $15 million contract?
Oh, I'm not talking about a 3-year.
That's what the first wave of free agency is. What we're talking about with Derrick now is not that. What we're talking about is an August training camp type of signing. Or sure, and a team could look around and stand to say, yes, I will add Derrick Henry here. But I think the people who are making that argument are saying, we can have Derrick Henry at a steal. Okay, well, what's a steal? Because who's giving Derrick Henry the contract that's going to be anything but a steal is my point.
Sure, but I think there would certainly be a market for him. Certainly. How much was Derrick Henry talked about at the trade deadline? Nationally, right?
Well,
Baltimore, Dallas, there will be a market for Derrick Henry. There absolutely will be.
I'm not disputing that there's not going to be a market for Derrick Henry. I just think it's an entirely different market than a lot of people, and I don't know if it's a majority or minority, but a lot of people may perceive a different market for Derrick Henry than actually exists.
Yeah, if you perceive a 3-year, $15 million deal type of market for Henry, then you're not paying attention to what's happening at the running back position in the NFL. Absolutely. I think people skew the figures in their head, but there will be a market for him.
And that's not even that, that's $5 million a year. And I don't know what the guaranteed money on that is, but that's not an outrageous contract. If you're talking about next year, is he going to play for 1 year 5, 1 year 3.5? So I think to put it in that context for people kind of fleshes that point out a little bit. We'll take more of your phone calls. Derrick Henry's going to speak. Mike Keith is going to join us as well. How about Kyle in Chevville's been waiting a long, long time. Hey, Kyle.
spray, right?
No spray.
You don't spray.
Nah.
And if you do
Yes.
spray, what do you spray?
I never spray. We just because if we use Centricon Recruit HD, we can't spray. It's a contract thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's one of those. So yeah.
Because we use that. I spray of chemical services. We spray. We kill weeds and everything, and we got beef in it.
Spraying for weeds. Seems a bit early for that.
Well, hear him out.
My bad.
Yes, it is your bad.
Oh no, I was hooked.
It's been a while since we've had one of those.
I was hooked. I wanted to know. I wanted to get a quote.
Oh, well, listen. Again, we have risked it all twice on phone calls like that, where we're just waiting for something because they don't know we're listening. God knows what they're going to say. Incredible. All right, one more. How about Ryan in Clarksville?
Hey guys, I'll start my story way back in 2008, a few years before, when the Titans had managed to go on the 13-3. Harry Collins, Chris Johnson. And, of course, who they have? They have the Baltimore Ravens in that first home game, and they spoil it for everybody. And you fast forward to the January 11th, 2020 game, oddly enough, what you guys were talking about, that is my favorite Derrick Henry moment, not just because he just manhandled the Baltimore Ravens in a revenge game, but that jump pass, whenever he threw the jump pass to Corey Davis, you guys were talking about earlier, when they took the camera and they shined it over to Lamar Jackson, supposed to be in his year, MVP year. They were supposed to win the Super Bowl, and his reaction was like, "You got to be kidding me, man." That was definitely it was something I'll always remember of Derrick Henry, and just how much he means to this team and how much he's carried this team throughout the years. I appreciate the call, guys.
Thank you very much for the call, Ryan. We appreciate it. Let's go to break with it.
Titans in the pistol. Mariota. Now he goes in motion. Direct snap, Derrick Henry throws it, jump pass in the end zone. Touchdown, Titans! Henry to Corey Davis. Oh my goodness, that play is from the 1800s.
That's a jump pass for the ages right there.
Not yes, hell yes.
It is 12:02. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. The Titans back on the practice field today ahead of the regular season finale Sunday against Jacksonville. Quarterback Will Levis did not practice yesterday with a foot injury as we continue to monitor his status ahead of that game at Nissan Stadium. Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence was limited on Wednesday at practice with a shoulder injury. Mike Vrabel met with the media before practice on Wednesday. He was asked to address rumors about his future, and Vrabel quick to state that he plans on being the head coach of the Tennessee Titans moving forward.
I know where we're at as an organization. I'm excited to build this thing and to fix this thing and get it to where we want it to be, to win championships with Rand and Chad and A-Rob and a coaching staff and everybody. I mean, that's what our goal is. So, but no, the social media and where that is, and I can't focus on that.
Rosters are out for the upcoming Pro Bowl. Running back Derrick Henry, the only Titans player named. It'll be his fourth career Pro Bowl appearance as he turns 30 today. Defensive lineman Jeffrey Simmons and Danico Autry were named as alternates. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're happy to have you. Today, sun just poked out for the first time, it feels like, on a frigid Nashville Thursday afternoon. That's all right. We're happy to have you. Hope you're having a great start or a great halfway point of your day at this point. 615-737-1045. That's how you jump in. Phone lines are open if you want to discuss what's going on with the Tennessee Titans. Got some college football playoff stuff as well as we get closer to the national championship game on Monday. Mike Keith is going to join us in 25 minutes as we, on Derrick Henry's birthday, talk about a lot of our favorite Derrick Henry moments. Last game, last ride type of vibes, whether it's Tannehill, whether it's Henry, whether it is, in fact, the last ride for Derrick Henry. There's a lot of intrigue around this, even though they're 5-11. And closing out with things at home, closing out with the Jags at home, the Jags needing a win to win the AFC South, and the Titans being the only thing that stands between them and that. Wouldn't that be nice? I don't know. I don't know how many people are still getting themselves excited about the idea of playing spoiler. I don't think excitement is probably the right word. But I feel like if you have the ability to do anything, and that just so happens to happen, you're not going to be mad about it. Maybe some of you would be. I don't know. So have we decided who we want to give the tickets to?
We have one more submission.
All right.
And then I think we make a final call.
Well, this is a good one. It's one of our favorites around here. Uncle Bob in Spring Hill. What's happening?
Hey, guys, thank you for taking that call. Let me tell you, I don't have a favorite play. My take on it is, why don't we just roll all of them into one big enchilada?
All of the highlights all at once.
Take them all in the big one lump, like a Roy Oyster. Just, he's been great. I wish the best for him and Coach. But I thought I'd throw that in. I've beg for mercy here. I've never been to a Titans game before, and I'm kind of long in the tooth. So throw me in the hat, and I'd appreciate it.
Okay. What do you think about that?
Just throw them all in one.
He wants all of them.
The Derrick Henry highlight
Thanks,
tape
Bob.
For his Titans career is definitely going to be something.
I mean, it's out there on YouTube. It's wild. If you want to just relive all of those moments all at once. So Derrick Henry is going to speak to the media. Oh, Derrick Henry is speaking now. Let's hear from the birthday boy.
As time goes on.
This season hasn't gone the way you or the team probably wanted it to, but how good does it feel to get another Pro Bowl selection and have that honor?
Yeah, it's always a great honor to be recognized for your play, which I'm not too proud of this year, but from your peers and everybody voted, I really appreciate it. Very grateful to have my fourth selection. don't take it for granted at all, and just appreciate everybody who was involved that were able to get me in.
Do you have to give yourself a little bit of grace, I guess? So you say you're not too proud of your performance this year, and the numbers aren't quite where they've been, but clearly your peers and everybody else still say you're one of the best, and you're still over 1,000 yards this late in your career. Do you need to be easier on yourself?
No, not at all. Sometimes you need a year like this to be able to grow, to be able to learn, to be able to reflect, and I'm definitely going to do that once the season's over. If I wasn't fueled before, I'm definitely more fueled now, definitely more motivated, definitely more hungry, and going to this off season, attacking it as hard as I can. But at the end of the day, it's about being consistent, playing at a high level. And like I always say, I'm my worst critic, so I'm always going to be hard on myself regardless.
Are there other backs who you've sought advice from about playing later in a career, and kind of what advice do those guys give you about having long, sustained careers after 30?
I had talked to Barry Sanders at the Nike Suite last year at the Super Bowl, and I had saw that he ran for 2,000 when he was like 29 years old, and that kind of gave me a little bit more motivation. And I was a big LT fan, so I watched him throughout his career. I really watched almost all the backs. Grew up down the street watching Fred Taylor and Maurice Jones-Drew when they were a tandem. So got to watch a lot of great backs throughout my years and track their careers. And sometimes I go online and see what they did when they got to this age, and hopefully I can do some great things at this age as well. So
what do you anticipate Sunday being like, driving to the stadium, going through your regular motions, but knowing there's at least potential that it's the last time you're doing it in the home locker room there?
I would just treat it as any other game. I'm not trying to get too caught up, get too overwhelmed, and just enjoy the moment. Focus on finishing the season strong, going out there playing a good game overall as a team, and hopefully getting a win. And then after the game, having talked to no media and going straight home. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
You think there'll be a moment somewhere along the way? I mean, there's obviously going to be an introduction and some fanfare when you leave the field and stuff like that.
It's definitely gonna be a moment. Just last game of the season. I'll be a free agent after this year. Been here 8 years, so just be grateful to whoever shows up, and I know the fans will come out, and hopefully we put on the show, be able to finish strong. But just grateful for the whole process.
Do you have family or friends or people in public who ever come up to you and talk to you about free agency? Is that something that ever has to come up, or is it something you can avoid pretty well?
Yeah, I'm not really much. I don't really go out in public too much. So, but no, not really. I think they'll talk about it once the season's over with, but no, not too much. I'm too focused on what I need to do.
You guys have been going at it since, I guess, April towards the season. What's it like knowing that Sunday is the end of it, and it's kind of weird that a lot of times you're playing to get in the playoffs into the very end, and then there's a sudden end. Now the finish line Sunday. What is that like?
It's been a short, long season. I would say, but I mean that's just what it is. That's the reality of it. We love the game. But we just got one more, so just focus on finishing it strong. Like you said, we're not happy about how the season went, but it's all about how you finish, and hopefully you can finish it strong.
Get to know Sean Alexander well. Care of from both the team perspective and your perspective in the offseason, but is there a part of you, is there a large part of you that would like to play your entire career in Tennessee Titans?
Any player would love to play for the organization and finish out their career, as long as they can. But like you said, it's the business side and all those type of things that go on, and I understand that. So we'll just see how it shakes out during the offseason.
You told me to ask later on a few weeks ago when I asked this, what has been your favorite run or moment since in the time you've been here?
Just ask me after Sunday. On Sunday, I haven't answered yet.
Still got another one in you?
Still got, yeah. So we'll see. We'll see after Sunday.
How are you gonna celebrate your birthday?
Thank God for another one. Probably get some cupcakes or a birthday cake for my girl. My daughter's already been talking about it as soon as she woke up, and she'll probably blow out the candles, probably a little spit on there because she's always she's always excited for it. So yeah, just thank God for another one, and yeah, spending time with my girl and my daughter, and wake up tomorrow and see another day.
How old is she?
That's Derrick Henry. UW says it's wild how a few years back Derrick Henry couldn't or wouldn't talk. Now he's very personable. Growth. That is a very. It's a good point because, and I don't know how many people notice it. We don't carry Derrick's press conferences very often, but there is a lot of personal growth in that human being. His family dynamic is certainly different from a background standpoint. I think a lot of athletes, especially athletes who have been scrutinized and covered at that level, can be slow to trust, understandably so. And frankly, a friend of mine who has worked with Derrick Henry for a long time, now in a different capacity, but formerly with Titans PR, it's a huge credit to a woman named Kim Smith, who has worked with Derrick on a lot of different facets to get him more comfortable in his surroundings, in his situation, and to his teammates and guys like Ben Jones, who you've heard how much they love and care for Derrick and things like that. And even Superman needs some backup every once in a while. So it is cool to see that kind of personal growth, and for Derrick to decide, you watch these guys grow up in front of you. If you're Titans fans and they come in at 20 or 21 or 22, and whether they leave at 30 or don't see the end, don't see a second deal, or if they retire here, like it's always unique to kind of document those kind of things. Anyway, Mike Keith's going to join us at 12:30. We've got a lot more to talk about. We'll get into some of the stuff that you heard yesterday on Mike Vrabel from Will Levis. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Life is busy. We could all use some extra time in our day, which is exactly why Two Rivers Ford offers mobile service. We'll bring the service to your driveway at no additional charge. Oil changes, brakes, batteries, the certified technicians at Two Rivers will perform basic maintenance on your vehicle wherever you are, so you'll have more time for moments like this. Schedule your mobile service appointment by scanning the QR code or calling Two Rivers Ford today.
Okay. Mike Keith's going to join us in 10 minutes from now. We'll look forward to the voice of the Titans hanging out with us. It's been a little while since we've had Mike on. Titans and Jags upcoming on the Zone this Sunday. Noon kickoff, regular season finale for Tennessee. No Moss. Mercifully or otherwise. What did Derrick say? It's the longest short season that he's had? Or I understood the context. It's been a long season, even though it's one of the shorter ones that they've experienced, where the ending is abrupt, but this one, it's coming. It's not like there's anything that would prolong it or stave it off. It's right there. So, with that being said, we covered a lot of ground with Mike Vrabel yesterday. Press conferences, we carried him. You heard him respond to the questions around his job, the speculation around him and Rand, all this different stuff. Of course, I want to be here. Is what he said. But did you read through those comments again?
Yes, I've listened back to it a couple times.
Okay. Was there a reason that you listened back to it a couple times? Just out of curiosity?
It was just relevant, and figured we would use it again today. Why don't we listen back to it one time?
Let's please.
No, I don't. I don't, because, again, if we believed everything that was on social media, it'd be Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, and there's no tooth fairy and all that. So I really have never responded to any of those, and we're not going to start now. I know where we're at as an organization. I'm excited to build this thing and to fix this thing and get it to where we want it to be, to win championships with Rand and Chad and A-Rob and a coaching staff and everybody. I mean, that's what our goal is. So, but no, the social media and where that is, and I can't focus on that.
So you want to be here next year?
Of course I want to be here. Be here as long as we can win, and long as we can, do this thing. And it's been great, but it also has been, just frustrating this year. Nobody wants to be where we're at. You feel, for the players, having been in that situation, those guys are out there selling out, and you feel for them when you look out there on the field, and we're not winning, or it's pretty obvious. But the one thing that allows me to at least sleep at night is when the games, we had a clunker in Jacksonville and in Houston, and we're out there fighting, not letting them run through us, for 40, 50 yards and all that. And I know that there's no moral victories, and that's not a moral victory, but it's just a lot of times in those situations you can just pack it up and pack it in, and so that's that was last week. This week we have to be in a different situation. Talked about the ability to put ourselves in that competitive situation, where the game has some flow to it, and you make a play, you get a turnover, right? You pin them down, and you start playing complementary. So I talked to the team again, about that, and about eliminating, some of the mistakes, that are just, that come at critical times, and that make it tough to overcome. Thanks, guys.
All right. So, of course, I want to be here. Be here as long as we can win and as long as we can do this thing. Am I reading too much into that?
I would say yes.
Okay.
Yes. I at no point listened to that and thought, is there some hidden message in there? No, I don't think so.
Which is all that need to be said. Because I think some people did. And full disclosure, I didn't hear Blaine and Mickey's discussion about it yesterday. I guess Blaine had a lot of thoughts about Vrabel's situation, and so I don't want to speak out of context without having heard them in their entirety itself. But to summarize, that he should, of course, be on the hot seat given the results. Yes? To summarize Blaine's point? Whereas a lot of the messaging around Vrabel has been, yeah, you don't really start to turn up the heat on him, or at least they don't plan to turn up the heat on him until next season when they've got the resources, when they've got more roster control than they've ever had, when they've got more ability to impact personnel than they ever have, and you can start to sweep some of this John Robinson mess either out the door or under the rug. It's a fascinating dynamic because it's hard for me to not get caught up on that line though, Lucas, because it's kind of in passing, and of course the football coaches say, yeah, as long as we're going to win, like as long as we can win, be here as long as we can win and as long as we can do this thing.
Right. I think Mike Vrabel believes that they can win.
Yeah.
I believe that he believes they can build this thing back up into being a winner. And we've never seen Mike Vrabel rebuild a roster, right?
Nope.
We have no idea what that's going to look like.
Mm-mm.
But he believes that he can rebuild it into a winner. Do you believe that he believes that?
There's no disputing that Mike Vrabel believes he can put this thing back together.
Yes. So that's what I hear in that moment.
And I think that's the way that he would intend it for it to come across. But I do think that it's just important for the audience to say words do matter here, especially when your words are going to be scrutinized as heavily as they are, and that you can't just ask people to look at that as a throwaway line. I think it requires the context that you've just given it.
I mean, Jay on the F&M Bank chat says 2024 will define Vrabel's future. Is that where we're at? That the 2024 season will define Mike Vrabel's future? Because I'd be willing to say yes.
I agree.
Yes.
100% I agree. And I think that it's important to note that he's going to be given the opportunity to have 2024 define his future.
With the Tennessee Titans.
Chill Mode says, why is Rand not talking? GMs don't talk, guys. Like, this is not an abnormal thing. Like, John Robinson talked to the media too much. I think he wanted a lot of people to know that he was involved with everything that was going on. I think John was involved with everything that was going on, even down to some of the stuff that John probably shouldn't have been involved, like little stuff that doesn't matter, PR, social media, what the team's putting out on Twitter, like stuff that I know you've made the comment about Butch Jones caring a lot about the stuff that didn't matter in moments as the Tennessee head coach. I'm not saying that Robinson and Butch Jones are the same person in that vein, but I think there's some of that can happen, especially when you're in a job that's as tightly wound as these guys are. But GMs don't talk that often. So, whether you want to hear from Rand or not, like, does it benefit them at all, Mike Vrabel, especially in the middle of the season, to have Rand Carthon out there talking right now? No.
We just got used to it.
Sure.
We got used to the GM talking after trading a piece like Kevin Byard, who's been a cornerstone for 7-8 years.
Yeah. Most GMs don't do like a press conference after the trade deadline. They'll do, and I don't know if John did I don't think John did a locker room cleanout thing with us. I think that's mostly been Mike, but I need to go back and look just for context, because I know there will be something at the Combine with media availability with Rand Carthon. There'll be something at the Senior Bowl with media availability with Rand Carthon. There'll be something pre-free agency, post-free agency, pre-draft and post-draft every night of the draft. But beyond that, the league does not require these guys to speak that often. It does not benefit them to speak to us that often. For what? Especially when you're somebody like Rand who was just getting shots fired at him all over the place from all kinds of different media markets and all manner of stuff. To be caught up in the middle of this and to have to field questions about it, especially when the team's trying to finish out a season, I don't think anybody would look at that as a productive exercise other than, fans who want questions answered. So we'll spend more time on that. We'll talk about the Levis Kentucky Tennessee thing tomorrow. I think that whole thing was silly, and it's not like we haven't been through this before with Vols fans where I say, you're crazy. I love you all, but you're crazy. There were some of the craziness out there, some of the crazies out there on social media yesterday, not paying attention to what the quarterback actually said. In the meantime, it is Derrick Henry's 30th birthday. You just heard from Derrick Henry. And on Derrick Henry's 30th birthday, we've been talking a lot today about Derrick Henry moments. Again, I have no idea if Sunday is Derrick Henry's last day at Nissan Stadium as a Tennessee Titan. Nobody has made a determination on his future just yet. But in the event that it is, I think it's cool today to kind of look back at some of his favorite moments, and what better way to do that than with our next guest, who is the one who is the voice of so many, if not all, of these moments in Derrick Henry's career. He is, of course, Mike Keith, Titans Radio, Titans and the Jags at Nissan Stadium. Noon kickoff, Titans countdown on at 11 a.m. after the Lee Company countdown to kickoff with me, Blaine Bishop, Mickey Ryan, and Kayla Anderson. Hey, Mike.
Good afternoon.
How are you, bud?
I'm fine, thank you.
Well, we really appreciate you stopping by. So I asked you to pick a favorite Derrick Henry run, and you gave me one that I also love, but I'm kind of surprised that you picked it. So I'm going to let the audience hear it first, and then we're going to get into it. Because it comes from the COVID season, the 2020 season, where there's no fans in the stands, and the atmosphere for a play-by-play guy in something like that is always unique. But here's the call from Mike Keith back in the 2020 season at Baltimore of Derrick Henry's overtime game winner.
At the 29 of the Ravens, Henry gets the carry running left. Henry to the 25, Henry to the 20, to the 15, to the 10, to the 5.
Yes! Oh, yes! Yes!
Victory.
Yes! Yes!
Touchdown, Titans, as the Titans will run out of Baltimore with a shocker in OT.
Why is it your favorite?
The circumstance and the year that he had, it was fantastic to see that entire year from his standpoint and what he was able to put together. It was just remarkable. And he was hot like Chris Johnson was in 2009. It was just every time he touched the ball, you thought he could go all the way. And they wore down Baltimore in that ball game. Baltimore really had that one won and let the Titans climb back into it late. And the Titans go win this game. And the unusual nature of the circumstances too, because there was nobody there, nobody. It was crazy. And so to be able to witness what he did that year in a much more intimate way because of what the crowds were like, it gave me an extra appreciation for the specialness of what he's all about.
Mike Keith, voice of the Titans, here with us on 104.5 The Zone. You can follow him on Twitter and on Instagram at 10Voice. That's TENN Voice. Also, make sure you're checking out the OTP podcast, available wherever you get your podcast, the official Titans podcast. Of course, everything that they're doing online at TennesseeTitans.com. The intimacy of that for you as somebody who's chronicled his entire career and who's chronicled so many great Titans running backs throughout the course of their careers here, Mike, is unique because you've told this story the entire way through, and you don't know how it ends yet. None of us know how it ends yet, but Sunday's going to have a little bit of a vibe to it, no?
Sure. I mean, I think everybody who is savvy about where the whole thing is with the contract and, with where the franchise is at this point and where he is at this moment in time, I think you understand. I think you understand that this could be it. And I think there's an extra level of appreciation that everybody will want to show for the way he's gone about his job. Now, maybe it ends up being different. Maybe he comes back and, I don't know. Like you said, we don't know what the end result is going to be, but people are smart. And our fans are certainly smart, and I think everybody understands that this could be it in the way that it is, and you've got to appreciate it because you don't get to see it forever. You didn't get to see Chris Johnson forever. You didn't get to see Eddie George forever. You didn't get to see Steve McNair forever, and so on and so forth. I think as we're a quarter century into this thing being an NFL town and an NFL region now, I think the specialness of this moment is something that stands out even more because I think everybody has gotten to a full level of appreciation of this player. And, he's such a big name. That's the other part of it too. He's a national figure. He's one of the few true national figures we've ever had. Eddie George was one of those because he won a Heisman Trophy at Ohio State. But we haven't had a lot. And to see this guy be here and to play this kind of football after his high school career and his college career, and now to go on and have this NFL career, particularly the last 5 years, which I think make him Hall of Fame worthy. All of that really jumps off the page. I mean, it's really been an honor to call games involving Derrick Henry and to understand what you've been able to witness and the moments that he's given us to call on Titans radio.
Mike, you mentioned Henry getting to that point like Chris Johnson, where every time he touches the ball, it could end up in the end zone regardless of where they are on the field. At what point did that crystallize for you in your mind? At what point did Henry become that type of player to where it's impacting your preparation, in that the likelihood of this guy going the distance is there every time he touches the football, and you're driving to the stadium knowing that that's a strong possibility and maybe going through your mind how you want to frame it? At what point did Henry become that type of player for you, and how did you approach that from a preparation standpoint?
It's funny. He had one of those moments as a rookie. And it was in the Houston game where he broke a long one. And you're like, oh, okay. And he certainly did that a considerable amount at Alabama. But I think probably, Lucas, after the Thursday night game in 2018 against Jacksonville, I think after that, you're like, whoa, okay. You know, I mean, we see a guy that can start hitting home runs, and you start to look for it. And you try not to go crazy too quickly, because if he gets tripped up, it's a 12-yard gain, which is great, but it's obviously not a 72-yard gain. You have to let his runs build to start to see if it can happen. The other thing, too, is he has great football speed. I mean, his 40 time was just, 4.5 something. I mean, he's good, but not incredible. He has better football speed than he does 40-yard dash speed. Yet it's not world class that he's just going to totally run off and leave people. He would end up pulling away, which was always so impressive to me. But you could never go totally crazy on even his longest runs, because he still had somebody chasing him. So you always had to play it out. And from a broadcaster standpoint, that's a better thing. That makes you wait. In that way, it's been a lot of fun to call him and to call his games, because he's forced you to be patient, and everything he does sort of evolves. Sometimes with CJ, it would happen so fast I couldn't get to it. And it was fun to watch. It wasn't always the greatest to call until he was well into the clear, and then you could start trying to, dial it back in a certain way. But it's been just a lot of fun all the way through to watch, and particularly the element of the stiff arm being there too. I mean, that was the second part of it. Is, he knows how to make a long run. Some guys don't know how to do that. They're looking over their shoulder, or they're trying to make a cut they don't need to. This guy knows how to make a long run. He knows how to finish a long run, and that's a skill. And then he's got the stiff arm too, which is just so much fun, because he's posterized some guys with that thing over the years, and that's been a lot of fun too.
All right, so this is like asking who's your favorite kid, but do you have a favorite call of Derrick that comes to mind?
No. I mean, it's you played the one, and I hear 4 things wrong with that.
Stop it. That's the worst. No, Mike, don't do that to yourself.
No, but I'm not as bad about it as I used to be. I've kind of learned to let some things go, but I'm still not to the point that I can appreciate it in some way, like, oh, I'm wonderful. And it just doesn't happen. There are always things that you're like, yeah, I could have paced this differently, or wouldn't it have been more interesting had I said it like this, or if I didn't start screaming so fast, or you can wear yourself out with that, and that's not real healthy. And so I'm trying not to do that as I get a little bit older, but I also know, anytime you hear anything like that, you cringe, because oh, okay.
Well, that's what makes Lucas and I so gross, Mike, is because we don't have that level of self-reflection whatsoever. We just show up and put the microphones in front of our face and screw around. So instead,
You're mentally healthier than I am. I mean, so that's good. That's good. You'll live longer and have more fruitful and happy lives.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll come up in therapy.
You won't be a miserable old crank like me.
Well, Mike Keith is anything but a miserable old crank. What he is the true consummate professional, voice of the Titans and Jags season finale at Nissan Stadium. Mike, we will thank you for your time. We do have a favorite that we're going to play. We're not going to make you sit through it with us, but we appreciate you making time on short notice, buddy.
You're very kind. Thank you.
That's the man, Mike Keith. All right, Lucas, give it to me.
Give it to Henry. Looking for some room. Finds it. 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, end zone. Ladies and gentlemen, 94 yards. Touchdown, Titans. He is the baddest man in the NFL, and he just took her to the house.
So I'm sure a lot of people are of the opinion, maybe not of Lucas, but of me, where it's just kind of like you listen to something that we say and just you think the audacity. Like, where do you get off? I'm sure that happens to people a lot of times during the day. I just had one of those moments about us, Lucas, listening to Mike Keith basically. Somebody in the chat described it as Broadway Mike says, Mike Keith thinks he's the boom goes the dynamite guy. How the hell can somebody with that level of expertise, passion, specificity, detail-oriented nature to his craft be that hard on himself at this point in his career, and you and I sit down in front of microphones and just screw up 17 times a day in a show that only has 9 segments? It's the first time that I have thought of ourselves as the audacity of what we do here every day.
Don't drag me in with you now.
No, you belong in here with me.
No.
You belong in here
I'm
with
over
me.
here. I'm over here. Just looking at the mess. I told you. This is my side piece.
Well, there's no side piece. Lovely. It makes me feel cheap to be around you and Megan that way. It's just I hate that I'm the side piece. Feels dirty. Anyway.
I mean, Derrick Henry, right? Like, was asked about that. Sam Phelan asked him that exact question today. Do you think sometimes you're a little hard? Henry's talking about how bad of a season it's been and personally, and Sam asked the same question. Do you think you're maybe hard on yourself going for 1,000 and making another Pro Bowl behind this situation? And Henry said no. So, Mike Keith, Derrick Henry. So the Venn diagram is a circle. Masters of their craft.
There's no Thursday Night Football tonight. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. What are you doing?
We got high school basketball coverage back on the Zone tonight. Really excited. Ron Slay back with me on the call tonight. Father Ryan is hosting Lipscomb Academy, big region game, D2 AA middle region action. A couple of really good Middle Tennessee prospects in the 2025 recruiting class, and Cade Bennerman of Father Ryan and Miles Sidney of Lipscomb. So it's going to be a really fun game, 2 teams that know each other really well, and I look forward to it. I love being courtside at these games with Slay, doing these. We did not get the chance to do it last year, but we did in 2022. We had a ton of fun, and I just love how invested Ron Slay is in local Middle Tennessee high school basketball. I feel like an idiot every time we hop on these coaches' calls at this point, because I'm like, oh, coach, you know Ron Slay? And yeah, they've known each other for 30 years. So I'm going to stop doing that.
Why are you doing that?
I know. I'm going to stop doing that because Ron Slay knows every coach, every player there is to know in Middle Tennessee, and I'm excited to share that with him tonight. We will go on the air for pregame at 7 and tip off at 7:30.
That is objectively hilarious, the idea of somebody who's literally grown up in the middle of Middle Tennessee basketball and is so important to the state's basketball history, as is Ron Slay. And you're like, coach, have you met?
Yeah, Coach Slay coach. He's like, yeah. No, we went to each other's weddings or something. I don't know. Like this week, Coach Kevin Starks of Lipscomb Academy, he and Slay go back years and years and years. They've coached together. They've done all these things together, and I'm like an idiot sitting there trying to introduce them to each other on a phone call.
How's it feel, side piece?
I know. And
How's it feel?
And then Doug Bontrager of Father Ryan, who's been coaching at Father Ryan for since the 90s, game planned against Slay when he was a player at Pearl Cone. So, yes, I am the newbie in this situation. Ron Slay is the master, and I can't wait to be back on the mic with him tonight.
Well, that'll be a lot of fun. You can hear it right here on 104.5 The Zone. What is there some kind of frequency that people should be paying attention to high school hoops on The Zone?
We put it out on 104.5 The Zone's Twitter yesterday, the graphic of our broadcast schedule this year. I retweeted it at Lucas Panzica on Twitter. It's kind of, we've got some Thursday games, some Tuesday matchups, some Friday matchups. Just try to find some of the best matchups, some of the best environments in Middle Tennessee, of which there are many on the road to the state championships in Murfreesboro. So our next broadcast after tonight will be Tuesday night, Franklin against Nolensville at Nolensville High School.
Well, that'll be fun. I don't think there's anything left to do but the polls, so let's go ahead and do some polls, shall we?
Zoinks, like, hey, Scoop, stop the count, Yeah. The polls have closed. The votes are in. It's time for a poll update, Scoop. A poll update? Yeah. Zoinks, Scoop, here's Buck Rising Show daily correspondent Lucas Panzica. Lucas Panzica? Yeah.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, who sells below MSRP on any non-specialty new Ford. What is your favorite Derrick Henry run ever. Gary says the 99-yarder against the Jags, mainly because of the Mike Keith radio call. Anna says, obviously the 99-yarder, but the run against the Bills on Monday Night Football was one of the most electric moments that I have ever watched. Bobby says all of them. He's my favorite NFL player ever, and every play of his career has been special to me. It's hard to parse through and find ones that don't say the 99-yarder against Jacksonville. Are there any that you think we left out? Like what? Are there any that there's a ton. That Jags game had multiple. There's the 99-yard run, and there's a couple 50-yard touchdown runs, a 30-yard touchdown run.
Because he broke Eddie's single-game rushing record in that game. It wasn't just the 99-yarder.
And Mike Keith talked about that being the crystallizing moment for him of Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry. That does feel like that moment for everybody where he went up to a different pedestal.
So I'm going to say an off-the-wall one. And it's honestly one of the most impressive Derrick performances that he's ever had, and it's not a statistically good one. It's 2021 at Indianapolis, the game that he fractures his foot. He's only averaging like 2 yards a carry, but he finishes the game. He converts a critical third down to keep them alive, to hang on to win. Now, of course, he gets knocked out for the next nine weeks of football and doesn't return until the catastrophic Cincinnati Bengals game where he doesn't look like himself. But like that Colts game is as impressed with Derrick as I've ever been in my life because he's doing it on literally a foot fracture and just unbothered by it completely. Gets medically cleared, says, I want to go back in and finish the game. They say, okay, Derrick Henry is the kind of player who's earned the right to tell us if he's been medically cleared to go back in and finish the game, and he does just that. It's as impressive a moment as Derrick's had, and it's not a good memory for Titans fans, even though they won the game.
So the Josh Norman one has not been mentioned today. Tyler in the F&M Bank chat brings that one up. Obviously, it didn't count. What was the penalty on that play?
Oh, I think it was a hold or something like that. Actually, it was a 5-yard penalty, so it wasn't a hold. I can't remember exactly what happened. Illegal formation or something like that? I can't recall off the top of my head.
Throws a man down a call from Mike in the Lions game where he stiff arms a Lions player on the sideline. Yeah. But yes, many to choose from.
Couple stiff arms.
What was your reaction when Derrick Henry was drafted by the Titans? Big Orange Hypeful on Twitter says, as a Tennessee fan, I was fired up. Henry had demonstrated he could play. He certainly demonstrated that against Tennessee a few times. Brian says, are we trading DeMarco Murray? That was the first thought he had. Robbie says he had a huge sigh of relief because he wanted Henry in Tennessee, and he sweated until Henry's name was actually called. Andrew says, I liked the pick initially. After his first 2 seasons, though, I was ready to trade him.
So were they. They put him on the block. I remember that. I remember that trade deadline very, very well. Titans fans were screaming at us. Why isn't John Robinson trading for Demaryius Thomas, rest in peace, and Golden Tate at the time? And why aren't they moving Derrick Henry? They did have him on the block, and fortunately, they didn't get an offer compelling enough to move him.
What does Derrick Henry need to do to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Mahogany says hit 10K career yards. If Terrell Davis is in, Henry should get in. V-Love says he should just retire and wait 5 years. That's all that's left.
I know. It's hard, though, isn't it? Because Eddie's not in, and Eddie's statistically ahead of him. So it's hard for me to justify that. Like, I get what V-Love's saying. Derrick Henry's in all the NFL record books for a variety of different things. But it's harder when...
Who is it?
An alarm.
For what?
To go to an LLS
The end
meeting.
of the show?
It's not till tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Well, those are the polls.
Okay. What a terrible way to end this. What I thought was a good show today. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for playing. Thanks to everybody who stopped by. If you missed any of the interviews, check out the podcast wherever it is that you get your podcast. It's the very self-involved title, The Buck Rising Show. Blaine and Mickey are next.